Hey fam, we're back with another banger. What if Issei was the last celestial knight? So before we start, if you are craving adult mature content, join my Patreon now, linker in the description box. Alright, enough talk, let's fire it up. As far as I can remember, we were always on the run. We never stood in one place for a long time, maybe a few months at the most. It wasn't until I started my journey into adulthood that I finally understood why and who. The people that were chasing us was our own kind, wanting to capture me. Why? Because of what I possessed. You see, when a dragon is first born, that is the most memorable moments for parents. The infants let out a burst of energy which will eventually give way to the power that they will have. Since dragons are mostly energy that has taken form, the energy, or rather your life force, changes to accommodate the power you possess. For example, if you were to possess the power to manipulate fire, then your energy will change into an orange color. Also, if you had the power over ice or water, then it will change to a blue color. Mine was different, my energy stayed the same. This brought upon the conclusion that I had power over the cosmos or something close to that, which is why the government, or rather the council, wanted to take me from my parents in order to use me for their own gain. I would later find out that they would have extracted my life force and use it on their own military force. Too much power for one person to control, they would always say. Which brings us to now. After running for almost all of my life, my parents and I are trapped. Nowhere to go. They placed barrier seals all around the vacant planet, so we couldn't teleport out, and with an army this big we wouldn't be able to win. Also, it restricted the use of our dragon forms. The only thing I could do is just fight and swing the sword my father gave me as we fought and fought for what seemed like forever. I have had very limited training with my powers, so I could only use the energy in my body to power up my punches and swings. To top it all off, I haven't even begun my training in my dragon form, so I couldn't go into that either. At the end of the day, it was a good fight that we put up. We decimated about 10% of their overall army, but we were running on empty. It wasn't until my mother stood protectively in front of me. Although if I didn't notice how her eyes seemed to darken in hate at the thought of anyone coming near me. I also didn't notice how the way she was protecting me seemed more than what can be called maternal. It wasn't until I saw my father give a sideway glance at us that I did see a crude smirk take over his face. At first I thought I just imagined it, but when he came over and stood next to my mother, he did something that struck me to the core. He rammed his sword through her chest. Blood spurted through the wound, and I instantly felt a growl coming from my chest and punched him square in the jaw with all my strength. To my satisfaction, it sent him skidding about 30 feet before he fully stopped. My mother was pushing her hand over the open wound to desperately stop the bleeding. Why? She gasped out at her husband, who smirked at her while idly flicking her blood off of his blade. It's simple. I was offered something better. He's on. Mother yelled out as she coughed up an abundant amount of blood. I rushed forward, dropping my sword, and ripped off a long strip of my shirt and applied pressure to her open gash. Son. Haha, you know better than I do that he was only our son while he was forming. After that he ceased being my son. I could only glare, both in fury and a bit of confusion as to what he was going on about. By the you two seem to have not think of him as a son anymore, you think of him as a shut. As I watched him about to talk once more, I had enough. Hey, how dare you do something so cowardly? I expected much more from a war dragon than to inflict a wound during a surprise attack. Where's the honor in that, you bastard? Honor, you say? In battle there is no honor, only battle. That's all that matters. My glare only turned darker as I felt more adrenaline pumping through my body, mass exhaustion completely forgotten. Looking at my mother, who was now laying down on the ground with only my arms holding her in a sitting position, her skin deathly pale, I felt something break within me. I failed to notice how a green seal on the back of my right hand appeared before breaking. So didn't notice how my body started to absorb the energy of the cosmos and how my aura flared to life. The only thing I knew was that I had power pumping through me. I felt good. The feeling of powerlessness was something that I hated the most. Knowing that I couldn't do anything, or much for that matter, was a bitter thing to swallow. Although, now was different. It wasn't long before my aura had the core of the small planet we were currently on, and I had an idea. Encircling the planet's core, the gravity of the planet suddenly multiplied as the enemy army felt it harder to stand. I glanced at the barrier to find that it was blinking before multiplying the pressure once more and watched as it disappeared. Where both my mother and I were fine from the increasing gravity, but the rest were not. This was my plan. By increasing the gravity of this planet, I would make it so great that the planet would collapse on itself, thus creating a black hole. My plan seemed to be working as the plan. It shook violently before large fissures cracked open the crust. What are you doing? Are you planning on killing yourself with her? My faith, no, that man said to me. I ignored him and continued to increase the gravity of the planet. But it wasn't until I felt myself become lightheaded that I winced. Looking around at my continuing carnage, I saw that the troops were now teleporting themselves out of the area. Clearly not wanting to be caught in whatever calamity I was causing. The only people left on this planet was both my mother and I, along with that bastard. Speaking of the man, he looked like he was about to charge, but a cloaked figure appeared right next to him. I couldn't see his face, but I could tell that they were talking, and the only word I managed to pick up from the bastard's mouth was, "Elder." My eyes narrowed dangerously, but the cloaked figure put a hand on the bastard's shoulder before teleporting away. I gave a deep growl before I felt a cold hand touch my cheek. The increased weight of the gravity suddenly changed to its initial state, although the damage was already down. Looking at my mother, I saw she was giving me a warm smile. "That's enough, Issei. You've done. Good." She took a rasping breath and mustered up all her strength. I didn't want to think it, but I knew that these were going to be her final moments. I should have never taught that asshole Ling to think that he sealed your powers, and for who knows long. Don't talk, mother. I will find some help, just don't speak. I said, trying to convince her when in actuality I was merely trying to convince myself. No, you should already know that I will die. I should tell you some things though. First, you shouldn't harbor any animosity towards our species. We are prideful beings, but that isn't the only thing we think about. Who knows, you might find some love. Her silver eyes seemed to dull at the last part. Damn it, if only I wasn't so weak. If I had more control of my powers, then I know I could. Then get stronger. I know you can master your power. Haha. You always were a fast learner when I taught you about our history. You may be able to even teach yourself. I grit my teeth as the planet's crust all caved into towards the core. The piece of rock that we were laying upon was started to crumble. I promise. My eyes watered as a few tears fell onto her ashen face. I will find a way to bring you back. Hey, I know how stubborn you are. You won't be breaking that promise, huh? Then let me give you a parting gift. Her eyes slowly fluttered shut, but not before a small silver ball appeared in her hand and it sailed towards me. I felt it absorb into my body, and a vast knowledge of sealing, tactics, strategies, and some more that I couldn't yet identify came into my mind. I was broken out of my thoughts as the rock we were laying on disappeared and we were sent plummeting towards the newly formed black hole. My eyes landed on her limp form before giving a silent good bye, and with the last of my power opened a portal that will send me somewhere. I didn't care where, because anywhere was better than here. As my aura died down, I felt the exhaustion come back full force and I blacked out. The last thing I saw was the now swirling vortex of the black hole swallowing up the corpse of my mother. Ellipsis. Third-person POV. Darkness was all that Issei saw. He could feel him's LF floating forward, so he knew he wasn't stationary by any means. Suddenly the whole area illuminated in a vibrant display of colors that seemed to move and swirl on its own. As he looked around the MPTY space, he finally noticed that he wasn't floating but that he was riding something, if the giant scaly body he was laying down on was any indication. It wasn't until Issei noticed that this being was extremely powerful when he sensed its aura. So I opened up a portal and went through after that happened. I am in unknown territory and this being is Issei looked at the scaly being that meant to be 100 meters long and the two large dragon's wings. Wait, dragon. Okay, so this is a dragon, and by the structure and smell, definitely a female. Am I in a different dimension? That is possible. But the question is, why did she save me? Better find out, I guess. Issei looked over himself and found that his body healed from the previous wounds and his energy was back to its max, N.O.T. dimension. He could feel the comfort of the cosmic energy that he recently connected to. Getting up from his spot, he made his way towards the dragon's head. He started to think about what if scenarios if things went south. Just as he was nearing the front, the first thing he saw was a giant horn, and when he finally arrived on the head, he saw the horn was on her nose. Gathering some energy into his feet, he jumped forward and landed right on her snout before looking at the dragon's eyes. She kept flying, but he could see that her slit golden eyes were glued onto him. He had to admit that her eyes were very captivating. Hello. I hope you can understand me. Issei had to confirm that his species' skill to talk and understand any language worked, because if it didn't, then this would make this harder. Yeah, I can hear, yeah. Came a gruff female voice, although it seems that she was talking to him telepathically. That's good. Are you the one that saved me? Yeah. Her uninterested voice ran. G threw his head and he narrowed his eyes slightly. Why? TCH, I have my reason. Is that so? Issei said with a huff before he got an idea. How about we exchange information then? I'm listening. I bet you're curious as to how I got here, right? And I am curious as to why you saved me. Yeah, right about me being curious. This place is the void, and without protection everything will dissolve into nothingness, yet you are not gone. Fine, I'll take you up on that offer. Alright then. Ladies first. Issei watched with a bit of mirth as the dragoness widened her eyes and looked at him with a sharp look. How did ya know that I was female? She demanded while Issei frowned a bit in confusion before smirking at her. Oh, isn't it obvious? I mean, I woke up near the end of your spine, so it wasn't hard to notice your curvy hips, and not to mention I could tell that your chest is bigger than male dragons have seen. To top it all off, well, I am also a dragon, so I can smell you. He said with the same smirk, and unknown to him the dragoness felt her face heat up ever so slightly. Not to mention your eyelashes are longer and your body is slimmer. Finally, the last thing that cemented my conclusion were your eyes. What about my eyes? The dragoness in question didn't know why she was so curious about him. Just in a few minutes of talking with him, and her interest in him just skyrocketed. Well, how do I say this? He muttered and looked at her eyes with a smile. They are very entrancing, like they just draw you in. Hey, your mate must be very lucky to have someone as beautiful as you. Issei said calmly, unaware of the dragoness's inner turmoil. Beautiful, that's the first time someone ever said that to me. I don't even know his name yet he already has this effect on me. What can it be? His aura, that what? It's very soothing, yet violent in a way. Not orderly, but it holds sadness. Is he putting up a facade? Wait, why do I care? He really is interesting. The dragoness thought to herself before speaking to Issei telepathically once more. I don't have mate. Anyway, since you offered, I won't decline. I put you on my back because you interested me. My name is Issei. You have interested me, Issei. Not many can do so. As a matter of fact, you are the first to do so. Also, my name is Great Red. Another thing, would you mind taking off that mask you put on yourself? You noticed, Issei said as he lost his smirk and his face went into a calm expression. An aura never lies. Now, since I told you why I saved you, then tell me where you came from. Let's see, I came from a different dimension. It seems I wasn't wanted there anymore, and I opened up a portal sending me to a random location. Whether it dimension, universe, planet, or galaxy. Why? I was being hunted down by their army. The council wanted me for the power I possessed. I learned from my mother, who overheard from a soldier, that they planned to extract my power and use it for their own troops so they can expand and slaughter their enemies. They sound like a bunch of assholes to me. Though for them to want to kill you for that, what exactly is your power? Issei narrowed his eyes into a menacing glare at her, who was surprised at the drastic change in personality, despite setting up a mask beforehand. You tell me yours and I tell you mine. Sure, you first, pretty eyes. He smirked at her contained surprise. What, you thought I didn't mean what I said? Great Red was glad for her red-colored scales and clicked her tongue while averting her eyes. Whatever. I have power over dreams and illusions. Dreams? Issei looked at Great Red questioningly. Like you can make a dream a reality sort of thing. You are perceptive, has anyone told you that? Just one. But could you, let's say, bring back a dead person? If the person dreams strongly for it, then yes, I could. Who did you lose? My mother, actually. The bastard that is. My father betrayed us for power in the end and stabbed her right in the chest. He turned his head and stared at the empty void for a few minutes before sighing. On second thought, never mind. Oh, why the sudden change? Because I want to be the one to do it. I will find a way to do so. Continuing on, you also have illusions, that should come in handy from time to time. Yeah, they do. And you? I have power over the cosmos. Huh? Great Red asked in surprise and blinked once at him. I have power over the cosmos. For example, the energy, suns, stars, gravity, and so on. But I need to train because at the moment I can just his cosmic energy to power certain parts of my body like fists and feet. Great Red didn't respond as she was deep in thought so much that she stopped her flight and just stood levitating in the air. Hey, Great Red, you okay? Power over the cosmos, no wonder those assholes wanted to kill him, his power is infinite, eternal even. Just like mine, her yes landed on him once more and she began to slowly smirk, revealing her razor-sharp teeth. No question about it, he is the only male dragon that could equal me in terms of power. Depending on experience he may surpass me. But he seems new to his powers, so I win in that regard, for now that is. When was the last time I trained? I can't remember. Anyway, that's what I will do. I will go with him and hopefully she won't bother me during that time. I may have to share him as well. Great Red, are you alright? This seemed to bring her out of her thoughts as she began to fly again. Yes, I am fine. Just processing such a power that you possess. Speaking of which, what are you going to do? If you want to go to Earth, then I can easily send you to a safe location. Earth? Huh, that's the only habitable planet in this solar system. I sense humans, as you call them, as well as various supernatural creatures. Great Red, would you mind explaining the supernatural world to me? All of it. Grunt. Ing to herself she told him all about the supernatural world to the best of her knowledge. He listened intently as she explained the different factions that include the Shinto, Norse, Irish, Yukai, Greek, vampire, and even more. Then she told him that the three special factions that are the angels, fallen angels, and devils. The reason for them being different is because the three are interconnected. The devils were stationed in the underworld and were ruled by the four great Satans, or better known as Maus. The four leaders are Lucifer, Asmodeus, Beelzebub, and Leviathan, and the devils thrive in the dark. Like most of the other factions, they could utilize magic circles. The fallen angels can also be located in the underworld, which no doubt creates tension between them and the devils. They were ruled by Azazel and his other advisors. Even though they fell from heaven due to impure thoughts, they still retained their abilities to utilize light-based weapons. Like most others, they had their own set of spells and system of magic. The angels were last, and Issei was a bit irked by them, not in fear but more out of disgust. Most of it was directed at their leader, who was the biblical god. They lived up in heaven and he is the self-proclaimed chief deity of all gods. The angels were able to use light-based weapons and their holy power is deadly towards devils. Although, the main reason why Issei didn't quite like the biblical god was because he holds prejudice against snakes, but mostly dragons in particular. It was true what his mother said, all dragons aren't the aim, and he came to realize that as Great Red told him how God would slaughter any dragon that crossed his path, be them innocent or not. All under the jurisdiction of ridding the world of sinners. He even boasted how he was going to kill Great Red. So what about dragons? Issei asked after the long explanation. They are around and about. Don't they have a faction? No. We are feared yet respected, and that seems to be enough for us. Then what about our standings, strength-wise? Well, first we have the low-level dragons, followed by the high-level dragons, after that we have the 6 great dragon kings. Then next there are the 2 heavenly dragons, dragon god exceeds the last, and then finally we have the true dragon. True dragon? Wait a minute, that's you, huh? He asked, and Great Red smirked at him. Got it in one. Right now I would say you are in between low-level and high-level dragons. The good thing is that your potential is limitless, so you can get as strong as you want. Works for me. That just means that I have more levels to go through before I reach someone of your caliber. I should let you know that once that happens I want a fight with you. Not for the title of true dragon, but for fun. It would be nice to fight someone all out, which I doubt you do a lot. Yeah, right on that. Alright, once you believe you are strong enough then come and challenge me. I have denied challenges by the plenty, so I'm expecting you to come ready for a fight. If you defeat me then I will gladly proclaim myself as yours. Oh, then the least I can do is offer something in return. I wouldn't mind doing something that you want me to, if you win. Be it to kill someone, destroy a nation, or even a planet. This works in my favor either way. If he wins, I'm his. Yet if I win, he's mine. Single quote. Alright, then it's a match. I did forget to mention the evil dragons as well, but they rarely show themselves in plain sight. Evil dragons. Did they love battle and are brutal or something? Yeah, they are vicious dragons that would rank themselves between the power levels of the 6 dragon kings and the heavenly dragons. Although one of them can rival the heavenly dragons. I got a lot of people to beat then. It will be fun I guess. Well, I want to thank you Great Red for telling me this very useful information, and if your offer on sending me to a safe place is still open then I accept. No problem, and yeah, I can send you, but I want to company. She stopped as she sensed another presence enter the void and she instantly narrowed her eyes dangerously. That damn bitch just has to ruin this. Actually, never mind. Get ready because I'm sending you now. Issei prepared himself and not a second later a tear in space sucked him in before closing. Great Red stopped flying and released an irritating sigh from her maw. Back for another battle. You should know by now that you can't beat me, nevertheless you picked a bad time to both army, and so you better prepare yourself, Ophis. Great Red spoke as her voice trembled with power as an unknown purple and black energy began to take form. Ellipsis. A tearing in the space opened up and Issei was spit out. But managed to land on his feet. Looking around he saw that he was on the side of a dirt road and out in the distance was a small town. Closing his eyes, he quickly searched the area for any sign of supernatural creatures but found none. Sighing a bit, Issei made a checklist with the most important being to find a place to train. Let's see, I need a spacious area that is also out of view. Maybe I can find a cave over by those trees. Walking at a leisurely pace, Issei trekked through the tall trees and large shrubs while also looking at the unknown animals with curiousness. Then, something caught his eye and he made his way over to find long weeds that covered the entrance to the mouth of a cave. The only question now is, how big is it? Conjuring up a flame in his hand he used that as a light and ventured into the darkness. There were many twists and turns before he came into a large open room. A small smile of satisfaction appeared on his face for a second until it went away and he threw the flame to the middle of the room, which increased in size. Now, so based on my mother's information on seals I just have to mold it with my power and apply it to something. Her knowledge on this was extensive. Gathering some of his energy in his hand he molded it into a seal that would conceal his presence as well as any power that he will use to train. Although it is only as strong as the one who is powering it, so as he grew in strength so would the seal. Slapping his hand against the wall of the cave, it glowed an array of colors before becoming transparent. Nodding to himself he put a hand on his stomach and was quite surprised to find out that he wasn't hungry despite not eating before he came to this dimension. Brushing off that thought he sat in the middle of room and took a meditative position. As he felt the cosmic energy flow into him he smiled in anticipation. Ellipsis. Time skip. Damn. A woman screamed out as she ducked past trees and jumped over rocks. She was limping heavily on her right foot. Looking to be in her early 20s, she has long blue hair along with blue-green eyes, but an irritating scowl marred her beautiful face. Her pale skin was a bit dirty, although she had cuts on her arm, leg, and even a small puncture wound in her stomach that was leaking blood through her white shirt. It wasn't until electrically shaped whip came out from behind her and wrapped around her injured leg. Yelping in pain she fell down onto the grassy ground and struggled to get up before she felt a jolt rack through her body. Well, this should teach the bitch to deny Ajuka-sama. A man walked out along with 4 more men, who all had bat-like wings protruding from their backs. The leader had black hair and blue eyes. He wasn't wearing a shirt, exposing his chest to the world, and was wearing a blue overcoat with dark pants and shoes. The woman ignored the man and glared at the sword that was strapped to his back. "Hey boss, you going to kill her now?" one of the other men asked, but the man chuckled as his eyes scanned her body. With hourglass curves, an impressive bust, and a plump rear, she was indeed very gorgeous. "Keep up the paralyzing. Gee whip, while I have some fun with this one. Wouldn't you like that, Chaos Karma Dragon?" Tiamat was now glaring at the man with such coldness that it would have froze the man solid. She watched as he ca me towards her and roughly pushed her onto her back before looking over her like a piece of meat. "You wouldn't even be thinking that if it wasn't for that damn sword you have," she growled out, which caused the man to laugh loudly. "Oh, this thing. It's amazing, isn't it? Just a bit of Dragon Slayer magic and you instantly have a weapon that can kill the so-called might dragons. Now do me a favor, ND scream, because after I'm done having fun with you, I'm going to let my boys use you too. Who knows? Maybe I will allow you to become my personal pet. Afterwards." The man put his hands on her hips and rubbed his hands up and down her body. She still glared at the man in defiance while also gritting her teeth in anger. These damn bats. Always so greedy, and yet even I can't defend myself against them. Why am I so weak? Tiamat thought in both anger yet sadness as the man reached for the bottom of her shirt. However, just before he could fully grasp it, a hand grabbed his. Roughly. Folo. Wing the hand upwards towards the unknown man, she widened her eyes at him. The unidentified man had short brown hair and stood at about 6 feet 3 inches, 5 inches taller than her, while having a light tan to his skin. He was wearing a black hooded trench coat with a matching shirt, combat pants, and combat boots. On the hand that he was holding, the devil's, was a tattoo, but she could only see a head of a dragon. Although it was his eyes that captivated her. He had black orbs, but inside his iris was flecks of gold that slowly swirled around his pupil. To be honest, it looked like stardust to her, and there was also shiny blue, white, red, and gold dots that looked like stars that rotated as well. Not to mention that he exuded a powerful aura that she found attractive, almost like it wanted her attention on him. "Who the hell are you?" the devil snarled while the brown-haired man simply rose an eyebrow before assuming his calm mask. "I was in the area and came only to find that you were going to abuse this woman. Of course I wasn't going to let that happen. This woman is Tiamat, the Chaos Karma Dragon, and she is now my pet. Get out of here before I kill you. As a matter of fact, you already pissed me off. Boys, kill him." The trench-coated man simply looked at the group of devils, who prepared magic circles, and lazily flicked his head upwards. The darkness that was Ulrea looming the area seemed to rush towards the group of devils. Tiamat was the only one who could see the oncoming danger and watched as it grabbed hold of them and moved up their bodies, covering it in a cloak. The devils screamed before they were fully cloaked, and then the darkness crushed them without hesitation. The man flicked his head again and the darkness receded, revealing pools of blood and entrails. "Who were you talking to again?" the man in black asked in cold humor as he punched the devil and sent him flying backwards into a tree. Groaning, the devil blinked away the stars swirling in his vision and got up before taking out his sword. The weapon had a blue handle with a silver blade and let off a golden aura. Tiamat's instincts were telling her to not get hit with that blade due to the slaying property to dragons. The man simply smirked and gave a "come on" gesture to the now angered devil. Said man charged amateurishly and swung his sword. Noticing that the devil was using too much strength in his swing, the man simply hit the flat of the blade with an open palm. The added power caused the devil to lose his balance, and before he knew what was happening, he was in a headlock. A firm jerk to the neck and the devil fell limp as the man looked down at the corpse. Tiamat looked on as the man picked up the sword and crushed it in his hands like it was paper. "I hope he isn't an enemy, because I don't think I can beat him in my current state. Tiamat," the man said as he walked until he was in front of her and crouched down, looking at her wounds as well as the burn area where the electric whip was wrapped around. Fortunately, once he killed the devil group, the whip disappeared. Regaining her composure, she let off a cold aura and looked at him strangely. "Who are you? Why did you save me?" "The name is Issei. As to why I saved you, I merely helped out a friend in need." "Friend? I never met you before." "Hee, true. But I mean species-wise. You're a dragon and so am I. We have to look out for each other, especially in these kinds of situations. Now hold still, I'm going to heal your wounds." Issei's hands glowed a gold aura as she looked on at her wounds slowly stitching themselves back up. He's a dragon. Now that I focus on his aura, he is telling the truth about that. Such a calm, soothing aura. Gah. Snap out of it. Despite scolding herself, she couldn't help the blush that made its way onto her face. She couldn't help it, he was practically drawing her in with an aura like that. There. Now do you have any place to go? Huh. Oh, no, I don't. You can stay with me. I don't mind the added company, although I do travel a lot, so I can't guarantee if you will be staying temporarily or permanently. Yes, it wouldn't hurt, but you try anything and I will not hesitate to attack you. Please, I wouldn't dare harm a fellow dragon without reason, especially such a lovely dragoness like you. What? Her blush came back full force and she glared at him. But the blush didn't make it look intimidating. Don't say things like that so suddenly. Ha ha ha. Glaring at me like that only makes you cuter, Tia-chan. He asked playfully and watched amusedly as her face turned into the equivalent of a tomato. I'm done. Now let's get going. Issei bent down a bit and picked her up bridal style, which got him a bewildered look. What do you think you are doing? I can walk perfectly fine. No, you can't. One thing about dragon slaying swords is that it will place fatigue upon the dragon, thus leaving them more vulnerable to attack. While I got rid of the effects of it, you are still exhausted after being exposed to it. Just rest and we will be at my place in no time. Opening her mouth to retort, she closed her mouth and sighed tiredly. He started to run through the trees and she let herself relax in his grip. Looking at his face, she saw him glance at her and give a smile before looking ahead. He's different than the others. Other male dragons would just ignore someone in need since they mainly get mates from other races. But he didn't do that. Now that I think about it, he may be the only male dragon that attracts female dragons. I'll be sure to keep that in mind. Tiamat thought before she felt herself get drowsy. Fluttering her eyes closed, she unconsciously snuggled into him as she listened to his steady heartbeat and eventually found herself fall asleep. When he saw that the dragoness fell asleep, he teleported himself to his new home. He had abandoned the cave he originally settled in because it was no longer a cave anymore. During his 3,000 years of training, he had utterly destroyed the whole cave. On the upside, he had long found out how to create things from nothing, so he made a new house on the top part of a mountain. Appearing in front of a large 2-story silver mansion, he made his way into the house, while admiring his handiwork from the time he made it. The exterior of T. He house was made from silver while the walls inside were white gold. When you walked in, the living room had a couch and chair, then connected to it was the kitchen dining room. The other rooms on the first floor was a giant training room that he made. In the second floor were about 5 rooms and 3 bathrooms. All pretty big in size, and the same can be said for the bathrooms as well. Teleporting himself to one of the extra rooms, he gently set Tiamat down on the linen bed only for her to clutch him tightly. Looking outside the window, he guessed it was about midnight. He sighed before trying to put her down once more. He was successful in doing so, but he got an angry groan. Issei, can you stay with me? Tiamat opened one of her eyes tiredly and he sighed a bit before shrugging his shoulders. Sure, he replied before taking off his boots and trench coat. Now with his coat off, Tiamat can see that on his right arm was a tattoo of a black dragon. The head started on his wrist and it twirled up and around his arm. While part of it was obscured by his shirt, she could assume that it continued to his shoulder. He's handsome, she idly made note as he went to the other side of the bed and laid down on it while pulling up the blanket for both of them. Good night, Tia-chan. His teasing voice caused her to flush a bit before she smirked. Night, Issei-kun, she replied as silence fell over the two for a few minutes. Issei-kun, thank you for saving me. If you didn't show up, well, I don't want to think about what would have happened. It's fine. Don't dwindle in the what-ifs, Tia-chan. It only causes unneeded stress. Also, don't mention it. I would like to think that other people would help a woman in help, but I can't be sure. She nodded at his words before he chuckled a bit. Hee, you're the third one to say, thank you for saving me, to me. Third, who were the other two? Yar, Tia-chan, I didn't know you were the jealous type. I'm not. Just curious. One of them you should know personally while the other one you probably heard of. I saved one of them from getting killed by some evil dragons. The other one I saved from her father since he was planning on using her for his own gains. Damn, I have some competition then, she mumbled to herself with a frown. What was that? Nothing. Still, thank you. I know our kind aren't really like you. Eat our pride and power, but that doesn't mean we are all like that. You are a prime example. You were holding back in the forest and yet you didn't show it off, you just did what was necessary. You're different from other male dragons and other men in general. Actually, the main reason why I was running away from those devils was because I rejected an offer that one of them gave me. An offer? Yeah, he wanted to use me for a new system he had in mind. Something about creating more devils that were lost in the war. I should have expected him to send devils after me, and who knows if he would have forced me to be a part of his idea. What was his name? It was Ajuka. He never gave a last name, but he is obviously in the 72 pillars. Well, don't worry about that. As long as I'm here I won't let anything happen to you, Tia-chan. I don't want a cute little dragon like you to get hurt on my watch. Idiot. I may be an idiot, but I'm speaking the truth. Yawn, I'm tired. Sweet dreams, Tia-chan. Why yeah, sweet dreams. Issei-kun, you really are interesting, an enigma really. I wonder if I could be an active person in your life. Damn it, Tiamat, you just met the guy and yet he already has this effect on me. He is definitely mate material. But he saved 2 other girls. He said I might know one personally, so I can assume that they are both dragons. I wonder who else he has saved or going to save. Either way I have competition for him. Doesn't matter because I will not lose. Tiamat thought with a determined smile before falling asleep once more. Ellipsis. Issei opened his eyes to find himself in the void. Although it was more like his spiritual presence that is in the void. Turning around he saw a great red and smiled at her as he floated up to her large snout. Hey, Red-chan, what did you want to talk about? He asked with a slight tilt in his head. You see, ever since he first left the void he would occasionally be called to the void when he was dreaming thanks to Great Red. She nay. Veer told him why he can't physically visit her, but she did say that it wasn't safe yet for him. That piqued his curiosity but didn't question her further. The two would talk about miscellaneous things in his training. She also took to talking to him in her real voice instead of telepathically. Nothing much, just wanted to know how your day went. It really was funny in his opinion. Issei would hear about the feared dragon of dragons as being merciless and cruel, or about her being extremely lazy and not caring about anything. And yet she was here asking him about his day. Then again, he has never seen her angry before. But she has had some lazy moments. It went mostly well until the last of it. I trained, ate, trained some more, and then explored a new town that was about 100 miles from my house. It wasn't until I saw an injured woman getting assaulted by a group of devils. Turns out that woman was Tiamat, the Chaos Karma Dragon. I'm guessing they used some dragon-slaying magic because she wouldn't lose to a group of bats. You're right. She said that she got an offer from a devil by the name of Ajuka who wanted to use her to test a new system he had in mind, but she denied and he sent devils after her. Most likely in anger, but he also gave one a sword that had dragon-slaying properties in it. She was injured by it and then restrained by a paralyzing whip. If I didn't show up, she would have been sexually assaulted or worse, raped. I took pleasure in killing them and then destroyed the sword. She is in my house as of now. Ajuka, I may be wrong, but I think he is a devil of the Astaroth clan. I'll look into it. If he even thinks about going after her again, I won't mind plunging a ball of light down his throat. So protective already. Then what about me? If someone tried to sexually abuse you? Great Red nodded her head and Issei chuckled a bit. I know for a fact that would never happen, but if it did I would probably end up blowing up the planet. Only to put it back together again. Ah, you really do care. She teased with a smirk while Issei huffed. Well, of course. We still have our match to fight, so you aren't dying or getting injured in any way. I want you 100%. What about you then? You got hurt a lot both from training and battles. Although not as much now than you did when you first started. I have to get stronger, so I am bound to get injured. You on the other hand is already strong enough. Anyway, what's up? You haven't called me like this for a century. I've been busy with a little pest. I haven't got around to talk to you until now when I got a break, no matter how small. Also, I should tell you that the two heavenly dragons are fighting. Again, I still have no idea why. No one does. Great Red said with a snort. The thing is that they are nearing the battleground of the war between the three factions. Oh, no doubt the biblical God is going to want to kill them and the others might join him. What will you do? Obviously I will go and intervene if necessary. I swear you have a hero complex or something. I do not. I'm just going to fight only if the guys get too injured. You do know that Deirdre and Albion are female, right? Not until right now. Okay, well the plan is still the same. Only interfere when necessary. Hee, you know, with that hero complex of ours you may end up attracting an angel or maybe a devil. Oh please, Red-chan. I wouldn't be with an angel or devil. I'm more of a dragoness guy, mostly because female dragons are the perfect combination of beauty, strength, bravery, and intellect, like you for example. What? I'm stating a fact is all. Hey, I just noticed now, but are you blushing? Issei asked with a smirk when He noticed the darker tint to the dragoness's cheeks compared to her original color. No, I am not. I don't blush. Really, I think you would look absolutely adorable blushing. Issei. She barked. Out as her cheeks darkened significantly that you could clearly tell she was blushing. Ha 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 ha. Red-chan, I'm playing with you. Sigh, one of these days I will get you back for all of this. It was then that she noticed the area cracking and frowned. It seems that you are about to wake up, just in time as well since the pest is back. I'll talk to you later, Issei. Yeah, I'll see y'all later, Red-chan. Issei's eyes fluttered open and yawned before rubbing his eyes. Looking out the window, it was already past sunrise. Great Red's words replayed in his head as he frowned and tried to get up only to find out that he couldn't. Noticing the additional weight on his chest, he looked down to see Tiamat sleeping on him. Smirking teasingly, he gently poked her cheek until she woke up. Luckily she already seemed to be waking up beforehand, so he watched as she groaned and opened her eyes tiredly. Good morning, Tia-chan. Have a nice sleep. Good morning, and yeah, I did. Best one I had in a while. She trailed off as she saw who she was sleeping on and flushed in embarrassment. Haha, thanks for the compliment. Now usually I would tease you about this, but I have to go. Go? Tiamat asked in surprise and saw him get up from bed and go over to his coat and boots before putting them on. Yeah, I have to go, deal with someone that I should have dealt with a long time ago. You are free to leave if you so please, and don't be afraid to take some food with you. I already have more than enough as is. Patting down the dust on his clothes, he walked towards the door and opened it quickly. I'm going to make myself a quick-to-go meal before heading out. It was nice meeting you, Tia-chan, and I hope we can meet again in the future. Also, don't worry about your devil incident. I will be sure to keep an eye out for any devils that head your way. He said and walked out of the door. She stood rooted in her bed while thinking over what he said to her. He's going to leave, although he is coming back, right? What if he gets hurt or if he doesn't come back? No, this is Issei-kun we are talking about. Actually, I don't even know how strong he is. The devils he killed were only middle class. Either way, I am not leaving him. Even if I have to force him. Jumping out of the bed, Tiamat ran through the door and towards the kitchen where she saw Issei just finish preparing a sandwich. Oh, hey, you hungry? I can make you something if you want. I want to stay with you. Quote. Like in the house. I don't mind, but I'm not always here, so, no, I mean with you. I want to travel with you. I'm not doubting you or anything, but are you sure? Especially right now. What do you mean? Sigh, what I mean is that right now the two heavenly dragons are in conflict, but are airing the battleground of the war between the three factions. Do you know who is there that will love to kill Deirdre and Albion? The biblical god. Tiamat stuttered over his name in slight fear at the man. The guy loathed dragons and wouldn't hesitate to kill any that crossed his path. Even though she was a dragon king, the strongest out of the six, she knew she was not ready to take him on and win. Then she figured out what Issei was implying and widened her eyes. You plan on going there? Deirdre and Albion are one thing, but combined with the biblical god and most likely the Four Mouths is completely different. What if you get hurt or killed even? That's what I'm saying. I don't want you to be in the crossfire. Although you needn't worry about me, I'm strong enough. Tiama. T grit her teeth and looked at him sharply. It doesn't matter what you say, because I am going with you. If you drop me off somewhere else and leave me, I will find my way to you. If you tie me up, then I will break out. I understand that I may be weak compared to the biblical god or Didrag in Albion, but. Tiamat, Issei said in a serious voice as his face went into his usual calm expression. Said woman upon hearing her full name without any suffixes looked at him intently. You're right, I am facing some people that may make others tremble in fear. You're also right about you being weak when facing the likes of the biblical god. I may also get injured, no matter how small that chance may be. She put down her head in shame as he listed off her vices bluntly. However, turning her attention to him, she felt a hand on top of her head. You have the will to get stronger. That is something that I admire, Tia-chan. Just 3,000 years ago I was at the level of a low to high class dragon. Right now, I will let you decide how strong I may be. That feeling of helplessness and the fact that I know that I couldn't do anything, I knew that feeling very well. The thing is and I never wanted to feel that way, so I trained my ass off every day for 3 millennia. So, Tia-chan, what do you want to do? I want to stay with you. I want to fight by your side. I want to become your knight, who will protect you no matter what. That is if you would have me, Issei-sama. Such determination, how can I reject something like that? Although don't call me Issei-sama, alright. Master. Nope, my lord. No. Quote. Then how do you want me to address you? The same way as before. Just call me Issei-kun. If you are serious about becoming my knight as you said, then you need to understand the kind of person I am. I would much rather have a friend than a comrade. Understand, Tia-chan. Hi, Issei-kun, she said with a smile as he finished up the last bit of his sand. Wichan removed his unoccupied hand from her hand. Good, now let's get going. Issei waited for her to nod and then teleported them away to the battle site of the war. Ellipsis. The two reappeared a mile off from the battleground and Issei began walking towards the site. Upon seeing him walk, Tiamat followed at a relaxed pace. The two strolled in silence before she opened her mouth. Issei-kun, why? Oh, you were facing that one devil from yesterday. How come his dragon slayer infused sword didn't affect you? Oh, that. I guess it doesn't bother me really. Actually, the whole dragon slaying magic concept doesn't really apply to me. Really? Tiamat said with a surprised expression on her face. Then what about the poison from Samael? Samael? You don't know who she is. Can't say I do. Seems like Red Chan didn't want me to know some things, he thought in suspicion and turned his attention to Tiamat. She is a hybrid dragon and fallen angel to be precise, and it is said that her blood is a very deadly toxin to dragons. It could even harm the likes of Ophis and Great Red themselves. Really? Well, that is interesting. Where is Samael now? Supposedly, she is residing in Cocytus in the underworld. The biblical god sent her there a long time ago. She also hates dragons with a burning passion. Wait, that reminds me, what are you going to do when you get to Didrag and Albion? I'll check out this Samael later. Well, once I get there I am going to wait and see if those two need any help. If they do, then I will step in. Following that, I want you to take the two dragoness away to a safe distance after I heal them of any wounds they may have. But, nothing, Tia-chan. I'm counting on you to make sure Didrag and Albion are safe from further harm from the three factions. Okay, Issei smiled and put a hand on her shoulder, which got her to look up at him. Don't be so downtrodden. I assure you that I will train you tomorrow in various subjects. I'm not like you who went from a low to high class dragon to probably a class that surpasses mine. She grumbled childishly and he gave a sheepish smile. Haha, sorry. Although it turns I retain a lot of information and I am self-taught. I make techniques by myself and learn fighting styles the same way. The good thing is that once I get a feel on how you move and fight, I may be a BLE to come up with several training regiments and methods for you. But we can discuss more on that tomorrow. Yeah, so what were you going to do after I get Didrag and Albion away? I'm going to rid of a thorn in our sides. I'm going to kill the biblical god, Issei said with a cold smirk as he mentioned God, and Tiamat looked at him in surprise. The angels are bound to try and stop you from reaching him. No matter. They are merely hindrances that I need to avoid. If they get in my way then I will kill them, but my target is God and that is who I am primarily aiming for. If the other actions want to toss their hat into the arena, then I will deal with them as well. I would say good luck, but you seem awfully confident. I hope you aren't getting cocky. Nonsense, this is all confidence. If I can't kill him then how am I going to beat someone of even greater strength than him? Right. I guess. Get ready because we just about to reach the site. He saw her nod as they heard explosions coming from over the dirt hill up ahead. Climbing up, the two were met with a scorched and barren landscape that stretched a long way. Issei's eyes instantly spotted the 250-meter dragoness down below and he frowned as he saw their condition. The red and white dragon emperors were laying on the ground with cuts all across their bodies and both were breathing heavily. Air was also a man with 14 golden wings who looked to be in his mid-40s with white hair and a long matching beard. Issei enhanced his hearing as the man, who he assumed was God, and listened as he spoke to the heavenly dragons. Tiamat was looking at the scene below and then back at Issei, awaiting his call on the situation. Which was surprising for someone like her to do, but she would at least trust his judgment on the state of conflict down below. Before she could ask him anything he clicked his tongue in disgust and glared at God hatefully. Following his line of sight, her eyes widened as she saw that the biblical God was raising his sword Excalibur. Of all the swords that was the sword that she feared the most, with Ascalon following close behind. Not only does Excalibur have the same dragon-slaying magic that is greater than Ascalon, but the addition of the overall power of the sword would leave someone of her caliber heavily damaged in one hit. If God intended, which he probably did, to make the ultimate sword for slaying dragons, then he did a superb job in doing so. The injured heavenly dragons were proof of that. I'm going down there, wait about 30 seconds then follow. Here, take this. Issei created a black coat with a long hood in his hands and handed it to Tiamat. She swiftly put it on and flipped up the hood and looked at Issei who did the same. His eyes glowed and the only thing that was visible were his eyes. Here I go, Issei muttered as he teleported in a black flash just as God swung his sword towards the two dragons. Tiamat stood there clenching and unclenching her fists as the fought the rising dread at being even near the man who killed many of her kind. Not to mention that Issei, the man of her recent affection, is now facing the biblical God. How could she not worry over him? If he is like this, then someone has to so he doesn't end up killing himself. Be careful, Issei-kun. A few minutes before, God was feeling good. How could he not at the moment? He just defeated the two heavenly dragons, their bloodied bodies lying on the ground. Granted, he did have to form a temporary alliance with the devils and fallen angels, but he worked that into his favor. The three factions are currently at war. Tensions have broken past the limit of no return and conflict soon arose. It's been about 100 years since the initial battle. God thinks that it is safe to say that the angels are winning this war. When the heavenly dragons were fighting and trampled onto the three factions' battlefield, they responded in kind by attacking them. Now, while God may not like the fallen angels and the devils, his hatred for dragons exceeded that dislike. Although he isn't the chief god for nothing. Even though the three sides were fighting together didn't mean that he had to save any other non-pure angel. His brethren agreed as well. As a result, at the end of this battle with the two dragons, the devils lost two of their Leviat, Han and Asmodeus, and a very good amount of troops. While the fallen angels and angels only lost about 200 troops. However, the fallen angels lacked a strong motive. As time continued, the leaders of the fallen angels are starting to think about backing out of the war. Not that God would let them, that is. God's motive in life is that the wicked deserve to be punished and I will be their jury, judge, and executioner if need be. So as God stood in front of these two beasts and he gazed down at their eyes with a smug look on his countenance, he couldn't help but chuckle internally. Raising his mighty Excalibur above his head, he thought of what he would do with these monstrosities. Let's see, I know. I can create two more sacred gears that I have done. They just need to be released, with these two I can make two more Longinus class 1s. Oh yeah, that sounds good enough. Then after that it won't be hard to persuade some humans to join my side against the fallen and devils. I regain all my power, I'm going to kill that beast. Great red, cuckoo, God thought with a wicked smirk before directing it towards the two dragons. Any last words, beasts? One of the dragons, Issei, XTY meter red western dragon with crystalline green eyes huffed violently and glared at the man. Yeah I do. Why don't you go fuck yourself? The other dragon, a white western dragon of the same length, and two golden horns along with baby blue eyes grunted in agreement. For once I am actually agreeing with you, D-Drag. Oh, that makes me feel all warm inside, Albion. The red dragon, D-Drag, said sarcastically at its counterpart. You little. Silence, mongrels. Just die like the worthless scum that you are. With that the biblical god swung his sword D-Drag, who looked at the oncoming blade unflinching. It wasn't until a black flash appeared in front of the red dragon that it moved its head back a bit. God, clearly thinking that he could cleave right through whoever dared to intercept him, was utterly stumped when he felt something grab his sword. Looking up slightly he saw a man wearing a black trench coat with matching pants and combat boots. The unknown man had a hood on that obscured most of his face except his eyes. The biblical god's eyes widened as he saw the man was holding his sword with only one hand, and no matter how much the deity tried to power through the sudden obstacle, the sword didn't even budge. Ellipsis. The first thing Issei did when he teleported himself in front of God was glare at the man in cold fury. Just minutes prior he had heard the angel leader guard the two dragonesses as beast and scum, which only proved to cement his growing loathe towards the chief god. Before he appeared in front of the biblical god, he set his face in a calm mask and his eyes became cold and calculating. He usually went into this mode when he was in any sort of fight, whether lethal or not. Issei will admit that his personality does do a whole 180 degrees when he is like this. Kind of like how he was when he first came into this dimension. Glaring coldly at God, his eyes went past the old bearded man and saw members of the three factions. All of them were divided as angels, fallen angels, and devils, with some having less numbers than others. Who are you? God asked in a threatening tone, and Issei glided his eyes to him lazily. Who I am? Don't worry about it. Now what I want to know is, why were you about to kill these two dragons behind me? Issei already knew why the biblical god wanted to kill them, but he wanted to anger the man before him. Judging by his face, Issei was doing a good job at doing so. God bristled angrily at the obvious defiance from this man. Who was he to defy him? He was God, the most powerful of all the chief gods. He was going to make this heathen pay for disobeying him, and maybe he will humiliate him in front of the two dragons to utterly destroy any hope they may have got when they saw him. Listen here, boy. Those two dragons are nothing but scum like the rest of their species. He. Issei chuckled darkly as his aura flared to life, causing the air to get thicker. Such a rotten attitude you have. I think someone needs to kick you off of that mountain that you put yourself on. He pushed the sword over to the side and launched forward with an uppercut to God's abdomen, eliciting both a mix of blood and saliva as well as a pained cry. A shockwave was produced from the hit and God was sent reeling back at breakneck speeds while tumbling the whole way. The angel leader finally seemed to get his feet from under him as he skidded about another 100 feet before stopping. Issei clicked his tongue before turning around and looking at the heavenly dragons. Reaching his hands out to the both of them, they moved their heads back before putting them forward. When his hands finally touched, they felt their wounds heal and widened their eyes. After a few more seconds he pulled back his hands and looked at their wounds and nodded to himself. So care to tell me what two lovely ladies are doing here in the first place? D-Drag and Albion felt their faces heat up, although much more noticeable in Albion's case, and averted their eyes from their savior. Well, we were both fighting and wound up here, D-Drag said as she slowly stood up from her downed position. Then they started to attack us and we weren't going to take it sitting down, so we attacked them back. Wait, how did you know we were female? That is, unless you're a... Albion trailed off as she stood up also and looked at Issei with her head tilted to one side. You're right. I'm a dragon, so I can smell that you both are female, came his nonchalant reply, which brought their blushed back full force. Don't say it like that, the red dragon yelled, but just got a smirk in return. Gua, you didn't have to be so blunt about it. Issei-kun, turning his head to his right, he saw Tiamat with her hood up. If he couldn't see her face, then he would have noticed her twitching eyebrow. Right on the dot, Tia-chan. Tia-chan, as in Tiamat, the Chaos Karma Dragon. Albion questioned and Ddrag nodded. Hey, Ddrag, Albion, how are you two doing? Fantastic, I mean it's not every day that you get cut with dragon slaying magic and then almost die. Ddrag, you damn smartass. Tiamat growled and Issei couldn't help but chuckle at the two. Now, Tia-chan, you know what to do. Bring the two to where we were before coming down here and take this. Reaching into his pocket, he extracted a piece of paper that had a black rune on it. Slap this onto the ground and a barrier will erect itself. Don't move from there and enjoy the show. Nodding her head, Tiamat put a hand on the two dragons and teleported them to their previous location. Hey, boy, Issei groaned and turned back around to see God with a blonde man with blue eyes standing next to him. Glancing once more to the three dragons locat. Ion, he was glad to know that the barrier was already up. Oh, came back for more. He smirked at God, not that he could see due to his hood. That made the biblical God fume in anger, but before he could respond, Issei spoke up once more. Now I'm pretty sure that you all know where this is going, so I will say this only once: anyone who doesn't want to get killed or critically injured, retreat now. Scanning his eyes from the three factions, he waited for a few moments before a loud sigh was heard. This is a better time than any to say this, I guess. We, the fallen angels, hereby withdraw from the war. A man in his 20s spoke up from his respective side. He had black hair and golden bangs as well as a black goatee. He also had 12 jet black feathered wings, signifying that he was a fallen angel. Azazel, you coward. An enemy is right in front of us yet you want to run. A young man with black hair and pointy ears hollered. Unlike Azazel, this fallen angel only had 10 black wings, along with pale skin and bloodshot eyes. Kokubil, Azazel sighed tiredly and rubbed his eyes. We lost a good number of troops during this war, and unlike the angels and devils, our population is limited. Nothing you say or do will change my decision. Don't forget who the leader of the Grigori is. Kokubil ground his teeth together before giving an angry huff and turning away. Azazel gave a sign. Al and a giant magic circle appeared underneath them and their army. Once they were gone, Issei turned his attention back to the angels and devils. Anyone else? The only thing he got was silence in return. All right then. As soon as the last word left his mouth, the combined group of devils and angels, totaling to about 500 troops, all charged up their respective magic, or in the angels' case, light spears. Then about 200 soldiers of their joint armies came charging at him with light swords and metal lances. Looking down at his hand, he gently clenched it and an amused smirk marred his obscured face. It's time I reveal myself to the supernatural world. The oncoming volley of projectiles and soldiers came within 50 feet of him before a giant burst of power sent them all sailing backwards. The biblical God was in the process of trying to steady himself from the sudden increase, although it wasn't long before a massive pressure fell over him and everyone present. Fumbling to his hands and knees, he looked ahead to see the man clad in black release a monstrous aura compared to the small bit he let out upon his arrival. Yet, it was the power itself that scared him despite the increasing size. Covering the area like a thick miasma, it was black in color, but it also reflected a variety of colors, both dark and light. Orange, blue, gold, silver, ruby, purple, and so forth shimmered and gleamed while the obsidian color was still there. God suddenly realized why the man's power was so terrifying. It was because it felt undiluted, raw, pure, and dare he say infinite. However, God was not the only one who felt the shiver of fear. In fact, all around the planet the deities of different factions felt that same dread creep up on them. With Issei's aura still growing, that it spread to the rest of the planet while covering it like a blanket, it made him stand out. Just like he wanted. Ellipsis. Ziz huh. A large serpent-like dragon mumbled in confuse. Ion as it opened its amber eyes groggily. Looking around, it lifted its head slightly and observed the surrounding landscape. Several fish seemed to stop dead in their tracks before swimming away in fear. Tilting its head in confusion, the dragon gave a long yawn before swimming up towards the surface of the ocean. Yawn, what is that enormous energy? It feels familiar, the dragon spoke softly as it seemed to slither upwards. When it finally peeked its head out of the water, its eyes widened considerably. A black aura with multiple shimmering colors seemed to expand across the sunny sky until It completely blocked out any light from the star. Day instantly seemed to turn into night, but instead of feeling any sort of fear, the dragon smiled and went back down to its resting spot. Gently getting comfortable, the dragon put its head down on the soft sand and couldn't help but chuckle softly. Fufu, Issei-kun must be revealing himself. I have to make plans to visit him in the future, but fine. RST. The dragon said in a very feminine voice before dozing back into sleep. Ellipsis. Such a boring fight, none of them seemed to match up to him. A woman's voice rang out through a quiet and decrepit village. Several of houses were set ablaze with a raging fire while bodies littered the streets. Based on their bat-like wings, they were obviously devils. However, right in the middle of the village was a giant pile of dead bodies filled with men, women, and children. Sitting on top of the pile was the woman in question, adorning a black overcoat with golden ornaments, a plain black shirt, a pair of form-fitting black jeans, and black knee-high combat boots that had 2 golden buckles on the back side. The woman looked both intimidating and stunning. She swiped a strand of black and gold hair from her face and peered at the corpses with her mismatched eyes. Her left eye was black while her other was the same shade of gold as her hair. The morning sun reflected off of her pale skin, but the dissatisfied frown on her lips didn't go away. Sigh, I should leave before the devils come to my loca. Giving off her surprised sound, she snapped her gaze at the sky, which instantly darkened as a familiar miasma covered the atmosphere. Instantly recognizing the aura, she let out an eager grin and stood up from her spot on the dead bodies. My Issei-kun, you really got strong since the last time I met you. That time when you saved me from love, that demanding presence you gave off, and the glimpse I got at your power. It seems I'm going to have to step up my training if I want to stand on equal ground with you. Dusting off her clothes, she narrowed her eyes at the miasma before tilted her head. Why are you still suppressing your power, I wonder? HMPH, either way, once I get stronger I will make sure to court you. Until then, Issei-kun. Giving one's last smile, she disappeared in a golden flash. Ellipsis. Grr. When will you give up? It should be obvious that you can't beat me. Great. Red roared in anger as she dodged a black-violet beam before blasting a red energy beam in return. Baka Red, I will kill you. A woman in her 40s with black hair and emotionless gray eyes said in a monotone voice. In addition, she was wearing a gothic Lolita outfit. Dodging the red blast, she manifested about a dozen snakes and sent them to Great Red. You damn brat. Great Red hollered and swiped her wing at the snakes, which dispelled them into a smoky haze. Ophis, how long do you want to keep this up? I will kill you this time. It doesn't matter, I will always come back to kill you, bitch Red. You stole my home. The woman, now Ophis, stated, and just as she was about to send another attack, the dimensional gap started to shake as an unknown aura creeped in. The 2 dragons eased their fight and instead looked around as the aura seemed to cover the iridescent landscape. Such a strange, yet powerful aura. The Ouroboros dragon mused to herself while Great Red was in shock. That aura, no doubt that is Issei-kun. I knew he got stronger, but I never thought he was this strong. Damn, is his intention to reveal himself or something? Current fight now forgotten. Great Red caused a large tear to rip in the space next to her and centered on Issei's location. The image blinked before displaying said man standing across the angels and devils army, who were looking at him with a fearful look. Looking around, she saw the Chaos Karma dragon and the 2 heavenly dragons standing up on a dirt hill, although they seemed to be unaffected by the power output. Without any indication, Issei's ever-increasing aura sucked back into his body and vanished without any sort of trace. How interesting. Who is this person? Ophis asked herself, but then noticed a flash of worry and curiosity cross over Great Red's eyes. Narrowing her eyes at the true dragon before her, face became emotionless once more and looked at the image with interest. Ellipsis. Who are you? The biblical god asked with a slight stutter at Issei, who cracked his knuckles. Like I said, you don't need to know. Now where we were again. Oh yes, the fight. Well, give me your best shot, let's hope you don't disappoint me. Issei muttered the last part to himself as the angels and devils all took a defensive stance, albeit shaky as they may be. Noticing this, he chuckled darkly at them. Yar, I didn't Even attack yet and you are already trembling in your shoes. Wow, let's hope you can survive, although don't blame me for you dying. You should blame yourself for your own arrogance since you neglect to call your remaining troops from your home bases. And also for your own weakness. Smirking coldly at the now terrified devil and angel troops. Stretching out his right hand, a black portal opened up and he sent his hand in. Finding what he was looking for, he wrapped his hand around it and withdrew it from the portal, which disappeared as soon as his hand was fully out. In his hand was a Issei sword that gave off power that seemed primal. The sheath was a deep ebony, that seemed to absorb any light that was reflected onto it, and the handle was the same color as the sheath but was decorated in red jewels. Switching hands to the 3.5 foot long sword was situated in his left hand, he gently the handle with his right. This is a sword of my own creation, and you all will be the test to see if it is just as I anticipated it to be. Swiftly withdrawing the sword from its sheath, he put it on his left hip before pointing the black blade at the angels and devils. Giving one last smirk, he instantly vanished, leaving a loud shockwave in his wake. Appearing right in front of the nearest angel, Issei swiped his sword in an upward diagonal fashion and successfully split the angel in two. Ignoring the bewildered looks being sent his way, he charged another angel and decapitated him, and it was then that the coalition army seemed to break out of their stupor. Surrounding him in a circle, Issei can be seen slicing and dicing angels and devils that dared cross his path. However, as he stated previously, they were mere obstacles in his way to God, who was stationed on the outskirts of the circle. Parrying a swing from a light sword, Issei punched a man in the face and sent him flying back to the fray. Turning around, he deflected two swings from a pair of devils. ND stabbed one of them while he grabbed the other one by the throat with his unoccupied hand. Wrenching his sword free from the now dead body, he jerked his left hand and a crack was heard from the devil's gullet that he was holding. Without looking, Issei stepped to the side and grabbed a light spear that was sent his way and charged some of his power into it. The spear instantly glowed in a white light, but also let off a dark color as well. Throwing the spear at a group of devils and angels, it exploded and they were instantly vaporized in the blast. It was then that he spotted an opening in the crowd that led to God. He ran full force at the deity. Swinging at any opposition that came across his path, he ducked and flipped over any stray swords or projectiles until he saw that he was surrounded once more. Two figures stepped up towards him and Issei made note that they had 12 devil wings. Lucifer and Beelzebub. Issei identified them as they both brandished their weapons, or in Beelzebub's case, magic. Well, you sure are strong to take down a good portion of our army, let alone only using your sword. Lucifer stated as he wiped some of his silver hair from his eyes. I agree, but your reign ends here. Beelzebub followed up while Issei just looked at the two mouths in boredom. Yeah, okay, Issei spoke sarcastically and his left arm was then completely enveloped in blue, sparkling lightning. The lightning quickly changed colors to a white-black and he slammed his electricity-clad fist into the ground. Unable to handle the pressure, the surface cracked violently while the electricity flowed through the opening fissure. The pained cries of devils and angels that were caught in the lightning-based attack were apparent, but luckily some of the army, including the biblical God and the last two mouths, took to the skies. Ignoring the slowly disintegrating angels, devils, Issei looked at God before yawning to himself. Wow, I'm bored with these small fry, my tea as well end it as quickly as possible I guess. Grinning at the thought, Issei launched himself at the two mouths before instantly vanishing from view midway to his destination. Looking all around their point of view, the two mouths were curious as to where Issei went before they widened their eyes and looked up. He was above. Beelzebub exclaimed as Issei was already in the motion for a downward strike. Swinging down his sword with unsurpassable speeds, Issei used some of his powers to further enhance the effect of the strike. Finishing his strike, the space towards the last mouth shimmered before a loud burst of wind sent them propelling down to the earth. Although whether or not that was the best option is arguable. His power-enhanced strike reached the ground as well and split up the already deep crack in the crust of the planet while also widening it to unimaginable proportions. Dirt and rock spewed from the crack as globs of molten hot lava can be seen bubbling at the very bottom. Disappearing in a black flash, Issei reappeared on the edge of the enormous crack and looked down to see the two mouths hanging on to the side, both heavily injured from that one stroke. It seems that your reign ends here. Issei smirked at the two before twirling his sword and sticking in the ground with a loud thud. Straightaway, the lava that was stationed at the bottom of the crevice rushed towards the surface and spewed in the air about 20 meters high. As quickly as it came was as fast as it disappeared, leaving not even ash of the two Mao. Lifting his sword from the ground, he turned to the about 100 to 200 still standing soldiers. The rest were either dead or unconsciousness. He killed Lucifer Sama. And Beelzebub Sama too. Screw this, I'm out of here. Some of the devils yelled out in obvious fear and made transportation circles and disappeared. Turning to the leftover angels, Issei grinned and charged at the flying biblical god. Appearing in the angel leader's blind spot, he sent an axe kick to the man, who just barely put his hands up in defense. Rocketing to the ground, God groaned and held onto his sword tighter before he felt himself get lifted off the ground by front of his white armor. You unhand God right this instant. The golden-haired man, Michael if Issei remembered correctly, screamed and charged up a light sword to the max and lunged at Issei. Feeling something bounce off his body, Issei could only chuckle in mirth at the seraph's shocked expression. Slamming the pommel of his sword into the angel's head, Issei put back his attention to God. Oya, such a weak attack. I expected more of a seraph, but then again I'm not surprised. He stated in cold amusement while the rest of the angels could do nothing but be frozen in fear. Release me. Some who is nothing more than dragon-loving scum isn't fit to touch me. God bellowed angrily, but Issei merely laughed a bit. Arrogant to the end, how predictable. Just as he was about to raise his sword to stab the biblical god, Issei felt a fist wrench itself in his gut. Looking down to see God's fist imbued with light energy, he raised an eyebrow. Slamming the deity into the ground, creating a large crater as a result, he sheathed his sword before stepping a few feet from the downed god. Why don't we settle this like men? An old-fashioned fist fight. It's your funeral either way. But I would have to reject. God grinned as golden magic circles appeared all around Issei's immediate vicinity. Pouring out of the circles were angels by the hundreds, all coming to defend their god from harm. As if the newly assembled angel force created light spears and trained it on him. Issei just smirked, but before he could begin to wrap up this fig, a golden-haired female pushed her way through the crowd of angels. Gabriel, what are you doing here? You are supposed to remain in heaven at all times. God said in a calm tone, but it held anger. Seeing that one of the seraphs has entered their trajectory, the angels momentarily lowered their spears and motioned for some to round up the ones that were still alive and also Michael, who was unconscious. Stop this. Gabriel hollered at Issei, blue eyes pleading for him to listen. You can't kill God. If he dies, then who will lead the humans? Who will lead them to peace and prosperity? Everything we do, if for the greater good of humanity and the supernatural world. Can't you see that? Oh, is that so? And pray tell who is going to stop me from doing so? He asked rhetorically, to which Gabriel instinctively grimaced, clearly expecting him to back down from the fight. Think about it logically. If you kill God, then the other factions will no doubt attack the angel faction. Not to mention that they will go after you as a way to challenge themselves. How will you avoid conflict with the other races? The busty, golden-haired beauty stated, and Issei was silent for a few seconds and put a hand on his shadowed face. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Issei laughed as his aura burst back into existence with a vengeance, and gravity seemed to increase as they were all sent to the floor, again in God's case. Your naivety is amusing, little crow. How will I avoid conflict with the other factions? You say, it's simple. It's fear. To think that one emotion could do so much, but I can. Fear can lead you to avoid conflict and turn the other way. As to your faction, why would I care about the angel faction? To be honest, I don't give a damn about what happens to you all. If you are scared of other factions attacking you, then get stronger. Issei glared at the seraph and walked forward until he was looming over her kneeling position. I can't stand people like you. Or rather women like you. If you don't like something, then stop pleading and begging and do something about it. Instead of cursing your own misfortune, you should get stronger to overcome that obstacle. However, I should commend you for being so brave enough to throw yourself in the midst of a fight. So for your courage, you don't have to watch your god die. Cutting off her supply of oxygen momentarily, Issei used the gravity around him and threw her body like a ragdoll towards the assembled angels. Looking back at God, he relented the increased gravity on the bearded man and grinned, clearly not caring if the woman was caught or not. Now where were we? Oh, that's right, I was going to kill you. The biblical god brandished his sword Excalibur and charged at Issei. Side. Stepping a swing from the blade and then ducking under another, Issei practically played with the deity. Slapping away a light spear that was sent his way, he tensed his body as a wide strike was sent his way. Moving his body at the last second, Issei grabbed onto God's arm and punched the elbow with enough force to pop the joint from the socket. Ah! The deity screamed out in pain as he looked down and saw that his bone has broken through his skin. Grinding his teeth in anger, the biblical god took Excalibur in his other hand and proceeded to swing in fury. Your movements are getting sloppier, biblical god. Is this all the chief deity can do? Issei asked with a smirk and was rewarded with even more wild swings. His body suddenly disappeared in a flash and God instantly felt his left leg explode in pain. Uttering another cry of pain, he looked down to see that the limb below the knee was gone and leaking blood profusely. Using his sword as a cane, God turned around and saw Issei standing there casually. You know, this is probably nothing compared to the pain you caused when you killed all those dragons. While may have been justified, most were clearly out of spite. They are nothing but scum. Shut up. Issei's voice hardened and he stalked his way to God and caught the sword in his hands. Then, Excalibur glowed white, signaling that God was inputting his power into it. Seeing that he was trying to strengthen Excalibur, Issei charged up his hands with dark energy which ate away at God's light energy. What? The deity muttered in confusion as his sword lost its glow. It was then that he heard something that he never thought he would hear. The sound of a sword breaking. Snapping his attention to Excalibur, God was completely slack-jawed when he saw spider web cracks appear on his prided sword. For a sword known to be one of the strongest, it sure does break easily. Issei muttered to himself and applied more pressure till he heard the sound of definite breaking. Snapping the sword into several pieces, he delivered a roundhouse kick to God's face. The result was that the leader of heaven was sent flying back until Issei appeared in his path and gave a sharp elbow right to his stomach that sent him to the ground once more. Another crater was formed as the biblical god coughed up a large amount of blood. Groaning in pain, God tried to pull himself up but found a foot on his only good hand. Before he could speak, a resounding crack was heard as his hand broke. Issei didn't waste any time in throwing a flurry of punches at the downed deity's face. Each punch generating even more blood than the last. By the end of it, God's right eye was completely swelled shut and blood was now leaking from his nose and mouth. Grabbing the man by his throat, Issei held him up for the angels to see and was met by horror-stricken gasps. It was then that he suddenly smirks when he felt someone watching him and looked all around the area and found nigh Invis. Eyeball magic circles with different crests on them. Hello, leaders of the other factions. Issei began as his gaze lingered on a single tear in the space for a little while longer. My name is not something that you need to know. You see, I have been among you all and I saw some things that irked me. For some reason, you all find it favorable to slaughter innocent dragons, yet for what reason I do not know. Holding up God even higher in the air, he narrowed his eyes a bit at the unseen audience. Your heroes in your mythology kill dragons without giving a damn about who you are killing. Almost as if it is they get some prize for killing the dragons. Tell me, how many of my brethren have you killed for glory? Was it to follow in the example of this man? This, chief god of all gods that is now broken before you, is nothing but a hypocrite. Looking directly at God, Issei's lips peeled back in a small snarl of disgust. Your religion is flawed in so many ways it's laughable, although there is a reason why I dislike you. It's because you get away with some of the cruelest acts, yet you get away with them just by saying it is for the better of your religion. No, your trivial problems with dragons and serpents has gave birth to naught but a false god wrapped in benevolent clothing. That is why you will die, right now. Issei threw God in the air, but before the leader of heaven could use his wings to fly away, he felt a searing hot pain begin on his stomach. Looking down, he saw a black flame erupt from the spot and he found himself screaming in pain as he could feel each cell of his body burn to nothing. Falling to the ground with a thud, God continued to roll around in attempt to extinguish the flames and even try to bring out his power only to find it blocked somehow. Don't even think about using your light powers. Fallen God, I imbued the flames with dark energy that even you won't be able to escape from. The biblical God heard Issei say but couldn't respond due to the pain. His mouth set in a mouthless scream, his eyes finally rolled back into his head. Flames eating up all of his body and the only thing left was a small pile of burning ash. Let this be a lesson to all of the other factions in the world. If I find either of you harming an innocent dragon, I will personally arrive at your gates and utterly destroy you till there is nothing left. Now scram. Issei's voice rumbled the very air as he neared the end of his talk, and the gods and goddesses on the other side all felt chills run up their spines. Abiding by his command, they each ended their viewing. Urkel, but the terror in the space was still there. Is that a good show for you, Red Chan? Cuckoo, I can just imagine her face when we talk next time. Simply waving his hand at the large group of downed angels. They all felt their eyelids grow heavier, and one by one they felt their consciousness leave them. Flashing to where Tiamat, Didrag, and Albion are, he tapped the barrier and it dispersed. He noticed that the Chaos Karma Dragon was looking at him both in awe, curiosity, and a little bit of fear. While the two heavenly dragons were looking at him with a blank face, but the sweat that was on their foreheads was enough to tell him that they were nervous or scared. Oh yeah, girls, there is no need to be scared. You should know that I wouldn't hurt you unless you gave me a reason to. Now, let's get back to the house. Snapping his head to a single point in the sky, his entire body tensed up upon doing so. The three dragons all followed his line of sight but couldn't find anything significant in the area. Issei-kun, what's wrong? Haha, nothing. I thought I sensed something, but never mind. Let's get back the house, that includes you two as well. Looking at the two heavenly dragons, they looked at him surprised before narrowing their eyes in suspicion. Don't worry, I won't do anything. Fine. Alright, Didrag and Albion said, and he smiled a bit before flashing them back to his house. Ellipsis. Arriving at the destination, Issei looked around and saw that he was right outside of the house. Turning to look at the 50-meter dragons, he chuckled a bit in amusement, ignoring their questioning glances. Do you two have a human form? If not, I could always make the house bigger. The red and white dragon emperors nodded their heads, and he nodded as well. Good, that makes things easier. If you two would direct yourself to the living room, that would be swell. I need to take a shower from today's activities. Tia-chan, I trust that you will stop any fights between the two if any occur. Sure, I could stall them, Issei-kun. Good. Then, see you all soon. Without another word, he teleported inside the house. Tiamat looked at the two dragons with a slightly narrowed glance. Said dragons ignored the glance and instead went into their human forms. Their bodies glowing slightly, Tiamat waited for the process to finish, although her eyes were now set in a daring glare. When the light died down, it revealed two women who looked very similar in facial structures, but you could easily tell the difference based on their appearance. On the left was a 5'10" woman in her late teen with creamy skin and a mop of red hair that reached the beginning of her thighs. Her eyes were a lovely, crystalline green color that seemed to reflect the light that shined upon them. Her hips were slightly curvy, but her bust size easily made up for the lack of curve. She was wearing a plain red shirt along with blue jeans and white shoes. On the right was a woman of the same age and height, but she has luscious, silver hair that reached her lower back. Her shiny blue eyes seemed to absorb every detail of the house in front of her and combine that with her skin tone that was more on the paler side opposed to her opposite. Unlike the redhead woman next to her, she is wearing a white blouse as well as a blue and white floral patterned skirt. She was also wearing a pair of black flats on her feet. The skirt and blouse did well in accented her wider hips and perky bust that hugged her figure. Tiamat could instantly see the differences between the two as the red-headed girl went into a more relaxed stance while the silver-haired girl straightened her back and squared her shoulders. She even had her folded hands out in front of her like a princess. This is the first time I am seeing you in your human forms, the strongest of the Dragon Kings stated, and she got a smirk from the redhead. Oh, do you feel threatened, Tiamat? Afraid I might take something that interests you? Tiamat knew what she was insinuating, and that instantly caused her glare to increase in intensity. Didrag, please. As if someone like you could ever attract this Issei, let alone a regular dragon. The silver-haired beauty said with a sigh while Deirdre growled at her. I don't see you having suitors by the dozen, Albion. HMPH, any male dragon would probably be thrilled to have me as a mate. Unfortunately, the only people that would even think of wanting to be your mate were cavemen that died a long time ago. Let's be honest, Deirdre, you act a brash for a mate. Not to mention, you aren't dignified enough. Dignified. As if I give a flying foo. Girls, while I enjoy your bickering, can we at least do this in the house? Tiamat interjected to the two, which caused Deirdre to grumble to herself. Nevertheless, the Dragon King opened the door to the house and led the two to the living room. She idly made note of the silent conversation between the heavenly dragons right behind her. Picking a seat on one of the couches, she waited for the two to sit down and sized both of them up. It was quiet for a few minutes between the three, with only the sound of running water being the only apparent noise. The three females were all glancing at each other and sizing up their bodies. Finally, Albion cleared her throat and put her attention on Tiamat. So, Tiamat, how long did you know this Issei? I just met him yesterday, actually. Yesterday. Yeah. The White Dragon Emperor narrowed her blue eyes at the dragon and was about to speak when her opposite jumped into the conversation. What are you to him then? You don't seem like the type to stay at one place for so long. Also, just who is he? He killed the biblical god. Not that I'm complaining, and he made it low. Okay, like he was just playing with the leader of heaven. Turning her face from Deirdre, Tiamat thought on the recent events. Issei told her that he will let her judge his power against God, and she had faith that he would come out victorious, but did not expect him to do so easily. Also, his change in personality both scared her, yet she couldn't help but feel her carnal desire kick in at that point and demand for her to take him as a mate. The way he presented himself, how he spoke with such coldness, his dominating power that literally blocked out the sun, and him setting the deity on fire with inextinguishable flames, she couldn't help but let out a shiver that moved across her body. To be honest, I don't know. The only thing I know is that he saved me yesterday from some devils and then he brought me here. As for who I am to him, I am his knight, yet also his friend. Although, I should say, Issei is mine. Or rather, he will be mine. Quote ellipsis quote. Quote ellipsis quote. Ha ha, ha 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 ha. Deirdre let a laugh escape her lips while the other two looked at her confused. Ha ha ha, oh, Tiamat, 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 seems like you are going to get competition then. From you? The blue-haired woman asked, but Deirdre shook her head and motioned to Albion. No, from my dear younger sister Albion. She was totally checking him out ever since we came here. Quote exclamation mark quote. Albion instantly blushed upon the accusation, but then glared at her older sister. You always have to mention that I am younger, do you? Tisk, not that it matters anyway since I am the better of the two of us. Foo-foo, I won't deny though that he has caught my fancy. But I am not the only one, since Deirdre was practically drooling when she saw him release his power. I did and not. As if I would do something like that. You would do something like that because say you are part barbaric anyway, so it fits for someone like you. Anyway, when it comes to matters of the heart, I will not lose. Like hell I will let you get him. Deirdre roared angrily at her sister, who glared at her with a hidden fury. Just accept it. No, I will not. I am the oldest, so I get first picks on a mate. That was never a rule, you merely made that up now. I did not. That's the one rule that sisters must abide by. In your book, yes. In mine, no. By the way, you wouldn't go well with him to begin with. He needs someone who knows manners and how to be a lady, and not a barbaric woman like you. You little bitch. Skank. Whore. Slut. You piece of shit. Asshole. Stop it. Neither of you are going to get him, since he will be mine. You two need to learn your place and back the hell out. Tiamat screamed at the two bickering dragons, which got them to stop their argument. Deirdre and Albion stared at the Dragon King before smirking. You should know how we find mates, Chaos Karma Dragon. Do you really believe you have any more claim to him than we do? Albion asked as her sharp blue eyes threatened to cut Tiamat on the spot. We, dragons, love power. The T is what we will look for in a mate, male or female. We do this so if conflict arises, you can trust your mate that they can defend you and your kids, if you have any. Ddraig continued and Tiamat pra. Tikli snarled at the two while glaring dangerously at them. Issei-kun is different, I know he is. You silly girl, Albion shook her head, like a parent chastising a kid. I know he is different. Because no other dragon would have come to help another in need. Regardless, it is not his choice. It is our very nature as dragons to seek out a mate of equal or greater strength. We ask you once Ain, do you really think you have any more claim to him than we do? Let's be honest here, Dragon King. You don't. If anything, he probably, unconsciously mind you, thinks that we are more mate-worthy than you. So, if anyone here has to learn their place, it is you, Dragon King, that needs to learn where they stand to us, the heavenly dragons. After finishing her sentence, both Ddraig and Albion glowered at Tiamat, who did so back in return. Would you two like anything to drink? Issei's voice rang down the hallway and the girls ceased their glaring and instead focused at the doorway to reveal Issei wearing some blue shirts and a black shirt. Do you have any tea? The red and white dragon emperors said in sync and Issei chuckled at the two. Both dragons glanced at each other and flushed a bit in embarrassment. Sure I do. Do you want anything as well, Tia-chan? Some water would be appreciated, she said with a slightly strained smile, which Issei noticed but didn't say anything. Nodding his head, he went to the kitchen and began to prepare the drinks. After only a few minutes away, he entered the living room once again with a tray of 2 teas and 2 glasses of water. Handing the drinks to their respective person, he sat down on a 1-seat recliner and took a sip of his glass. His eyes roamed from one girl to the next, making note of the way they held themselves. For instance, Tiamat was drinking her water in a relaxed manner, but he could tell that her body was stiff and tense. He wondered why, but disregarded it since it may just be that she was wary of the two dragonesses. Looking to Ddraig, he scanned over her features and concluded that she was very beautiful, just like Tiamat. She was absent-mindedly blowing on her cup of tea before drinking it at a quick pace. She must have been thirsty. I wonder if the other is as well. Taking his eyes off of the red-haired beauty, he looked to her opposite. Absorbing her appearance, he was not surprised to find that just like Ddraig, she was another gorgeous woman. Unlike Ddraig, she was more attentive to her surroundings and seemed to be more eloquent. Holding the cup in both hands and delicately grabbing the handle, before taking a steady sip of the cup's content, her posture wasn't lacking and she even crossed her legs in a ladylike manner. Noticing a pair of eyes on her, Albion turned her head to Issei and gave a small smile which he gladly returned. Although despite their differences there were some similarities. Their facial structure was nigh identical, like their noses and lips. Ddraig was only a bit more gifted in the breasts department, while Albion was a tad curvier than her opposite. Not to mention, they both smelled pretty much the same. Are you two sisters by any chance? His sudden question caused the two heavenly dragons to widen their eyes a bit. Ddraig suddenly smirked a bit at Albion, whose eyebrow twitched ever so slightly. Yes, we are. I'm the oldest while Albion is my younger sister. You're the first one to guess that, the Red Dragon Emperor said while Albion bit her tongue to keep herself from retorting her sister's statement. That's odd, you two have the same facial structure and you both smell similar. That seemed to cause the two dragons to blush as they remembered what he said about being able to smell them. Either way, I'm sure you three have some questions. It is only fair after what recently happened that I abide to answer. After a few moments of silence, Tiamat was the first one to question him. Issei-kun, you were basically playing with the biblical god. How strong are you really? Well, I did say that I would let you decide that. So how strong do you think I am? At least as strong as Ddraig and Albion here, but you were suppressing your power, weren't you? Hee. Good observation. Yeah, I was. I wanted to minimize the damage that would have been done to the earth. You carved a giant crack right through the crust that you can see lava boiling at the bottom. It stretches for at least 1,000 or more meters. If that is just minimal damage, then I wonder what you can do if you wanted to maximize the damage done. Tiamat said in D's belief, and Issei just smiled mysteriously at her. Ah, Issei, right. Albion asked politely to him. Please, call me Issei-kun. I'm sure we are all friends here. Well then, address me as Chan from now on as well. Me too. Ddraig interjected, which got an annoyed look from Albion, not that she cared to notice. All right, Albion-chan, Ddraig-chan. So what was your question? Right. You seem much more different than you were when you were fighting God. Why is that? I usually just call it a mode that I have. But, if you were to get specific, then you could say that was how was before all the time. Dark and cold a majority of my time, but I had a friend that helped me get over that. Yet, just because I am not like that all the time doesn't entail that it doesn't slip out primarily when I am in a fight. So you are kind of like an evil dragon? Deirdre asked with her head tilted a bit, but he shrugged. If you trying to say that I am brutal in battle, then yes. If you mean all the time, then no. Also, unlike most of the evil dragons, I am not psychotic nor crazy. True, true. So what is your goal, Issei-kun? What do you want to do? Well, Tia-chan, like everyone, I have my own checklist. You will find out when I achieve those goals, but for now I won't tell you. Any other questions? Quote ellipsis quote. Quote ellipsis quote. Quote ellipsis quote. Then allow me to ask some. Why were you two fighting? Issei asked the heavenly dragons, who in question looked at each other. We don't necessarily agree with each other. Deirdre began, but she sounded unsure of herself. Let's say that we often have disputes in spite of us being siblings. Albion continued, and like her sister, she too was unsure of herself. So like a sibling rivalry in a way. That's basically it. Sometimes I want something yet she also does, and we fight over it. Issei nodded at Deirdre's words and finished his glass of water. Picking up the tray, he went around and collected everyone's empty cups and put them in the kitchen. When he came back, he went over to the heavenly dragons and swiftly chopped them on the head. Upon seeing this, Tiamat let out a small laugh as the two dragons yelped in pain. Ow! The hell was that for? Deirdre yelled out. While Albion cradled her head with her hands. That really hurt, Issei-kun. It was supposed to hurt. Forgive me if I hurt your feelings, but you two are idiots. Hey! Ha 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 ha. Tiamat laughed at the two dragonesses. Unable to hold in her laughter at their misfortune, Issei ignored their shouts and instead looked at them with a sharp gaze. So, if you two don't like each other, then you wouldn't mind if I kill one of you then? Quote 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 exclamation mark quote quote quote. All sign of conversation stopped, even Tiamat, who was in the middle of laughing. What are you talking about? Deirdre shouted in anger, but it didn't seem to affect Issei at all. Issei-kun, what do you mean? Tiamat added while Albion said there silent with a contemplative look on her face. It's obvious. If I kill one of them, they wouldn't care, right? For instance, his body suddenly disappeared, and before the other two dragonesses knew what was happening, Deirdre vanished as well. Appearing just a few feet from Tiamat and Albion was Issei, holding Deirdre by throat with his forearm. Her body dangled a few inches from the ground and her eyes were wide in fear. Now, Albion, if I were to snap her neck like a twig, would you care at all? Would you avenge your dear older sister, or would you turn the other direction? Also, Deirdre, don't even think of boosting your power, because the moment you do, I will kill you. So what is it, Albion? Issei-kun, stop this. Tiamat hollered, but he didn't take his eyes off of the silver-haired woman. The woman in question slowly got up from her seat and smoothed out her skirt before looking at her sister. Hands trying to wrench the forearm from her throat, to no avail, and eyes trained on her with a pleading look. Sighing to herself, Albion averted her eyes from the sight. You see, Deirdre is annoying and gets on my nerves all the time. She is loud, brash, completely lacks manners, and sometimes I really do go to kill her whenever we have a fight. I hate how she always thinks how since I am the younger sibling she has first claim to everything because she is the oldest by only a few minutes. Honestly, I wouldn't mind to see her die. Well then, I guess. However, Albion interrupted Issei. As a white aura surrounded her body and her eyes glowed menacingly. She is my sister above all else. Sure, she is the opposite of me and can be a bitch at some times, we are blood related. I will not let you or anyone else take away the only family I have left. Even if you killed God easily. I don't care. If you even try to kill Deirdre, I will fight you, and even if I die, I will die trying to save my family. Quote. Bion, Deirdre's weakened voice rang out in shock as her eyes suddenly welled up with unshed tears. The weight on her neck from Issei suddenly disappeared, and she didn't waste time in running to her sister. Flinging herself to her opposite, Deirdre squeezed the life out of Albion, who did so in return. Tiamat was about to scold Issei only to find himself smiling at the scene. Utterly confused at what was happening, she stood silent as the only sound apparent was some slight sobbing coming from Diedrag. Do you see now? You two shouldn't fight. You are siblings, sisters at that. Hen, you're here in this world, you only have each other to look out for. You never know when they might be gone, and I can tell you that the pain of not being able to see them anymore exceeds the pain they may cause you. By now the three girls were looking at Issei, who seemed to be reminiscing about something. Snapping out of his thoughts, he turned to Diedrag and bowed in apology. I apologize if I have hurt you in any way. I hope you can find it in yourself to forgive me. Suddenly becoming embarrassed at the sight of him bowing to her, Diedrag blushed and turned her head away from him. It's not that big of a deal. Why, you just got me by surprise. Yeah, surprise. Although, you sure are muscled, she mumbled the last part to herself and rubbed her neck a bit. Be that as it may, you helped out my sister and I. For that, I believe it warrants my forgiveness to you. Thank you, but I can see some irritation already forming on your neck. I can heal it for you if you want. If it makes you feel better, then okay. It would. So, do you want me to kiss the pain away or something else? What? The red-haired woman yelped as her blush came back with a vengeance, her cheeks the same color as her hair. Albion and Tiamat looked at Diedrag with a bit of envy at the position she was in. I can't even tell if he is serious or not, the Red Dragon Emperor thought to herself with a sweat drop before shrugging. I don't know. Just do whatever makes you comfortable. Making his way over to her, Issei leaned down and planted a small kiss on the side of her neck while also imbuing some healing properties to her. On Diedrag's part, she shivered in delight as she instantly felt a jolt go across her body both inside and out. With a sharp intake in breath at the contact to a satisfied groan when she felt her neck heal. Diedrag was now fully sure that she wanted Issei as a mate. If he could do this to her with just a single kiss, then imagine what he could do to her when they did other things. They're all better. Now, would you two like to stay for dinner or do you have any other plans? Sharing a glance, the two heavenly dragons nodded at each other before looking back at him. We are going to head out. If we lost to God and the others, then we need to train more, not to mention my sister and I are going to try to connect more. Albion said, and Issei smiled at the two. I hope that the next time I see you, the both of you will be even stronger. The power to boost your power and the power to divide others' power, by itself those powers are troublesome, but together they are practically a recipe for disaster. I look forward to our next meeting. Just as he finished his sentence, he felt his left arm become enveloped by a pair of breasts. Turning his head, he saw that Reg was indeed hugging his arm between her well-developed bust. You make it seem like you may never see us again. I can personally guarantee that we will meet soon. She said with a seductive wink. Hitch seemed to go right over his head if the head tilt was any indication. Feeling his other arm being shrouded in between another pair of mounds, Issei looked to the right to see Albion. The silver H-aired beauty gave him a slightly sultry smile as she looked up at him with her blue eyes. I agree with Diedrag. It isn't like we could stay away from the person who saved us for so long. I would love to get to know you better the next time we meet. Suddenly he felt someone wrap their arms over and around his shoulders. Turning his head sideways, he could see Tiamat's blue-green eyes focus in on him. Issei-kun, don't forget about me, it isn't like I am going anywhere anytime soon. Is this what they call the beginning of a harem? Nah, that probably isn't it. Haha, Diedrag-chan, Albion-chan, Old like to get to know you both next time. Tia-chan, who said anything about forgetting about you? As if I could with someone of your stature. Now, would you two like for me to walk you out? The Re-Dragonesses relented their hold on Issei and the red and silver-haired women nodded their heads. Gesturing for Tiamat to wait there, he led the way through the house and to the front door. This is a nice place you have here. Did you build it yourself? Albion asked as she admired the architecture of the housing. I did, but this is only one of the houses that I have. I travel a lot and due to that I need a good number of houses. As a matter of fact, I will only be in Japan for the next month or so before I head west to Europe. That's an odd transition. He nodded at Diedrag's statement with a smile as they turned a corner. Yeah, that is true. But, I have been there a few times and I have a friend there that I haven't seen for some time. A friend you say? Diedrag questioned furtherly. Yes, a friend. You two might know her actually. We might know her. I wonder who she is, the Red Dragon Emperor thought with a frown while her younger sister had slightly narrowed eyes trained straight ahead. Given that both Diedrag and I only know those of our own kind, that doesn't help for the most part. However, if we count the times we met with other dragons, then that would be about 20 or so. Here we are. Issei's voice broke both Albion and Diedrag from their inner musings. I hope you two have safe travels. And remember, no fighting unless you are sparring. Hi. The two dragons answered before they blushed in sync and averted their eyes from him. Also, Issei-kun, thank you for saving us back there. The blue-eyed woman said a bit shyly, but managed to look him in the eye. It's not like I'm thankful or anything, but I guess I am, so thank you, Issei-kun. Diedrag muttered, and Issei couldn't help but chuckle at the two, which caused their blush to reach their ears. Hee, you know you two really are cute when you are thanking one. I wonder if that is always the case. I guess we will find out in the future. Either way, don't mention it. I did it to save my friends, and I would do it again if another situation occurred like today's. But, what's going to happen now? God is dead and heaven will soon be in turmoil. No doubt they are going to blame you. They might even try to come for your head, or worse, the other factions as well, especially if they team up. Both Diedrag and Albion questioned, respectively. They aren't going to do anything. Issei-kun, I don't understand. It's quite simple, Albion-chan. It's fear. Fear. Yes, fear. They saw what I was capable of when I killed not only the remaining two Maos but also the biblical god. Combine that with my threat to the other factions, the killing of dragons will stop, for now. As long as they know that I am still here, the factions wouldn't dare harm an innocent dragon again. So, by not only killing God but also by proclaiming your strength and might to the other factions, you not only discourage others from attacking you but also from attacking dragons in general. Exactly, Diedrag-chan. That's genius, Issei-kun. That is admirable, Issei-kun. Yet, you yourself said, innocent dragons, so I'm sure that others will find a loophole around your declaration. No, Issei wagged a finger at Albion and smirked deviously at the two. Once again, it's fear. I never said by their definition of innocence, but instead I meant mine. For their sake, they best be well aware of that. I understand now, Issei-kun. You really are a thoughtful dragon. Issei chuckled a bit and patted Albion on the head. Her reaction was instantaneous as she closed her eyes and relished in the warmth of his hand. Issei-kun tilde. Diedrag whined with a pout at him. Laughing a bit, he used his other hand to pat her on the head as well. After a few more seconds he heard something that completely intrigued him. It might have been his mind, but after it continued for longer he was sure it was real. The two heavenly dragons were purring in delight. Nay, Albion-chan, Diedrag-chan, I didn't, you purred. He said as he withdrew his hand, but the two dragonesses didn't realize that and kept purring for a few more seconds until they snapped out of their trance-like state. G-goo, the green-eyed beauty put her head down in embarrassment. It isn't what it looks like, Issei-kun. The younger of the two simply covered her face with her hands. Girls, it's alright. It isn't that big of a deal. Why, yes it is. It's a very affectionate thing to do in the presence of another person. Albion answered, and Issei tilted his head at the two. So only female dragons can do it. Is it accidental or deliberate? Deliberately, Diedrag answered. That's fine, then. I don't mind at all. If anything, it makes you both sound even more adorable than before. I wonder if I can make Red-chan purr. Oh, that would be absolutely precious. He thought with a mental smile, while the two dragons were trying to fight down their blushes. Well, alright. If you like it, then I don't mind doing it in front of you. Not wanting to be outdone, Diedrag nodding her head at him. I don't mind either, Issei-kun. I mean, I guess I can do it, if you want, that is. If you two are comfortable doing so, then I would love to hear it once again. He said with a smile and opened the front door. Well, it was very nice meeting you two. I will see you both soon. I look forward to our next meeting, Issei-kun. The Dragon of Domination said and gave him a quick hug, before walking out the door. It was lovely meeting you, Issei-kun. By the way, your tea was absolutely divine. May we meet again soon. Albion spoke gratefully and lifted up her skirt a bit and gave a curtsy to him. Although before she proceeded out the door, she found Issei take her hand in his own. Lifted up her hand to his lips. He gently kissed her knuckles and gave a small bow in return. The pleasure was all mine, Albion-chan. A scarlet hue lightly decorating her cheeks, she nodded her head. With a smile before joining her sister outside. Hearing the soft click of the door closing, the two siblings both looked at each other before their bodies seemed to vanish into thin air. The sound of running can be heard as the two were sprinting down the mountain at incredible speeds. Well, that was fun, Deirdre said with a grin as she flipped over a rock and landed before continuing her running. It was. He is much more dignified and proper than the other male dragons. Albion answered a small smile, recalling his manners just minutes prior. Don't kid yourself, Albion. There isn't a male dragon out there that is like Issei-kun. True, not only did he save us but also helped out the other dragons in general. So unlike the others. You like him, don't you? Of course I do, and so do you. Then, Deirdre smirked at her opposite in mischief. Why don't we team up? You heard what he said before, right? Together your powers are a recipe for disaster. That was basically him hinting that we should team up. Also, if we are going based on draconic instincts here, then he will most likely recognize us more, since 2 is better than 1 when it comes to mating. So we would have double the chance of getting his attention than any other women, like Tiamat. I don't see why not. Now that I think about it, even though our powers are like night and day, they also complement each other. Ha ha ha, I would have never thought this morning that I would ever think of pairing up with you. Neither did I. But this may be the beginning of a good partnership between us. Now, we shall get to flying if we want to reach our homes before nightfall. Yeah, we should. Albion nodded and was beginning to go into her dragon form before she felt a sudden burst of energy and turned her head to see Deirdre already 20 meters ahead of her. Race you there, little sister. Without waiting for a reply, the red dragon flew off at high speeds. Sigh. Such a troublesome older sister I have, the silver-haired woman said. But a smile was etched on her face as her own energy caused a spiral to form around her. Once it dissipated, a white dragon flew out from it and went in the same direction as the other. Ellipsis. Issei-kun. Stop. Tiamat's voice can be heard shouting from the house as Issei can be seen chasing her all over the place with a teasing grin on his face. Tia-chan, hold still. I just want to pet you. He hollered and finally tackled her on the floor and began to give her a very affectionate head rub. The sound of the Chaos Karma dragon purring can be heard throughout the whole house that afternoon. Issei was confused. Scratch that, he was perplexed, very perplexed. After he had his fill of hearing a purring Tiamat, the two had dinner and then relaxed after the events that day. Unlike yesterday, he did not sleep in Tiamat's bed and instead opted to go into his own. He fully expected Great Red to bring his conscience to the dimensional gap and ask him some questions. Well, he was half right anyway. While his consciousness did get guided to somewhere, it wasn't to the dimensional gap. In its place was space, as in outer space. To be exact, it was the very ever-growing border of the universe. Yet, that wasn't the thing that puzzled him. No, it was the giant pair of doors that had hundreds upon hundreds of seal chains wrapped all over it. He was about to Florida. His power and break out of the dream he was in, but then he felt a familiar energy signature. The same one he felt minutes after killing the biblical god, that one spot in the sky that he could have sworn pulsed in primal energy. A black and red aura burst out from the cracks in the door and it began to eat away at the sealing chains like sulfuric acid to metal. The power over destruction, he was well aware of its effect. He saw it many times when the destructive energy would destroy not only stars, but planets and maybe even galaxies as well. Over the duration of his training, he had a near mastery of the power. Especially since it is used very often in the killing off of planets. That by no means meant the power was evil or wicked, in fact it is a basic necessity in order for life to flourish. Sometimes things needed to be killed off so another could take its place, this time even better than the previous. A constant circle of life and death, omnipotent in everything that is living. After the last of the sealing chains disintegrated, Issei waited patiently as the large doors slowly swung open, revealing nothing but bottomless darkness. Just as he was about to go through the doors, He suddenly stopped and tenses his muscles, primed and ready for combat. That's the same energy I felt before, he muttered to himself and got ready to summon his sword if anything went out of control. Why? Hello there, a very melodious female voice sounded from inside the large doorway. The woman's voice had a sort of slightly deep yet dark undertone. Looking towards the location, Issei was only met with a pair of sparkling ruby eyes that had a vertical slit as a pupil instead of the usual shape. Judging by the size, the woman was clearly in a human form opposed to any other form. Hello, you're the one that called me here. Huh, what I want to know is why, Dragoness. The woman gave an impressed sound and he envisioned the person was grinning at him. To be able to detect my energy even in a dream. I thought I took every possible measure to make sure you were in the dark about this whole conversation. While I commend you on your measures to prevent me from doing so, it appears you didn't add in the fact that I am quite different from regular dragons. Now, answer the question. I know you are a dragoness, but you also have some other energies mixed in with you. Are you perhaps part chimera? Yet your dragon side is the dominate gene. Huh, you really aren't normal. You're the first to say that and it is right. While I am a dragon, I also have the characteristics of other species. Although, back to your original question, it's quite simple, I want you. Want me, huh? Before I answer that, let me ask you this. A long time ago, when the factions on Earth were just established, there was a creature that came to the planet and threatened to destroy it. That was you, wasn't it? Yes, I am that creature. I am Trihexa, the apocalyptic beast in 666. Seems Great Red didn't want me to know about her either. Issei thought with a frown before looking at the woman's ruby eyes. If you want me to aid you in your goals of destroying Earth, then no. However, if you are insinuating something else, I want you as a mate. As I originally thought. Sorry, but I don't mate with people I don't know. Trihexa suddenly started to chuckle in amusement as her eyes narrowed dangerously at him. I didn't remember me asking you for your acceptance. Once I get out of here, I will make you my mate. Narrowing his eyes back at the woman, he smirked back at her with a condescending look in his eyes. Glancing at the doors, he snorted in mirth and crossed his arms over his chest. Listen here, Trihexa, what is going to stop me from coming to this location in the real world and ending you? Your threats are meaningless since you aren't even at full power. Quote exclamation mark quote. She widened her eyes in shock, while Issei tilted his head a bit while still wearing that smirk of his. Didn't think I would notice, huh? The sealing chains that you destroyed had the biblical god's power infused into them, meaning that he was the one who sealed you in here. Unless I was this close, I would have never had noticed. Regardless of that fact, those chains were also draining you of your power. As we speak, you are only about 50% of your maximum power. Let me ask you again, what is stopping me from killing you now? Foo, you really are an interesting one. Strong, shrewd, confident, and not to mention good-looking. The reason why you won't kill me is because you like to fight, don't you? We are the same when it comes to our strength, you can tell, can't you? How strong I am. Issei knew her strength, it was the one thing he noticed when he checked her current level of power. Her reserves even surpass that of Great Red's, and that is saying something. The potential for both of them to grow is so vast the two of them could be compared as the same when it comes down to it. Issei didn't respond and instead nodded his head to the woman. That's how I know. You see, we are beings that shouldn't even exist. The power we have could quite literally destroy the entire universe in an instant. My power of destruction and your power over space, or rather the cosmos, am I right? When the sealing chains first broke, I searched for the person that killed God and found you. Such raw, primal power, I would be lying to say that even being near you is like an aphrodisiac drug to me. Either way, there isn't anyone else to fight but each other that can really give us a thrill that we seek. Correct me if I'm wrong. Issei-kun. Trihexa purred out his name with clear seductiveness in her tone. His face remained blank for a few seconds before a smile formed on his face and he chuckled a bit. Relaxing his muscles, he gestured to the woman. Why don't you come out here? It is only honorary that I see the person who desires me so. I guess it is only fair. Issei watched patiently as Trihexa exited from the door. Or more like floated from the door. Her skin was like Deedrake's, a white creamy color that didn't have any sort of blemish to it. She adorned a sleeveless black dress that was loose-fitting, but accentuated her curvy waist and complemented her complexion. The front of her dress seemed to be strained due to the tension that her large breast was generated on the fabric. He already knew what her eyes looked like, but her hair was just as luring as her eyes. Obsidian black with blood-red highlight streaks that flowed down to the middle of her back like a waterfall. She was tall, only 3 inches shorter than him, leaving her at a solid 6 feet in height, and the last thing he noticed was her lack of footwear. So, Issei-kun, Trihexa suddenly arched her back and put a hand on the back of her head, white popping out both her chest and hips. Bending down slightly, she gave him a seductive smile and winked at him sexually. "How do I look? Hot, sexy, gorgeous?" Issei watched on in silence as she listed off some suggestions and licked her lips at him, looking at him with lustful half-lidded eyes. He, chuckling a bit at the woman, he shook his head comically. "You are probably the very epitome of a dark mistress." "So," she drawled out, trying to get a definite answer out of him. "Yes, Trihexa, you are very beautiful. In a dark way that I find very appealing. Are you happy?" he said honestly, while her eyes brightened up dramatically and she stopped posing at him. Crossing her arms under her impressive bust, which seemed to only further strain the fabric of her dress, she smirked sultrily at him. "In a dark way. I can say the same to you. You really know how to make a woman horny, you know that, Issei-kun. Although, if you think I low, appealing, no, you should totally see me when I'm naked in your bed. Oh tilde, I can picture it now. Your hand roaming my body with gentle yet rough movements. You pick me up effortlessly and plant key SSES on my boobs before working your way up to my mouth, where we swap saliva with one another. Putting me down on the bed, you take position on top of me as you rubbed your massive tool against my hot, quivering folds. And then you plunge. Okay. I get it. You don't. Hey, are you okay?" Issei asked as Trihexa held her face with both hands and her eyes were widened to the max in lust. She was unconsciously rubbing her thighs together in order to desperately get some much-needed attention to her moistening love canal. Darting her eyes to him, she grinned lustfully as she scanned his body in want. "Oh tilde, I am fine. You do not need to worry about me, my Issei-kun." "Okay, so let's get down to business," he said in a serious voice, and a few seconds later Trihexa retracted her hands from her face and her widened eyes lessened to their original size, but the arousal was still obvious due to the musky smell of the pheromone she was releasing on him. "What you said was true. It seems you are more than a beast that people make you out to be. Then again, I'm not surprised, since God, most likely than not, spread those accusations against you. You want me? Fine, let's settle this like dragons would. When you regain your full power, let's fight. The winner gets to demand something from the loser. You may ask to be mates, you may ask to kill someone, you may even ask to destroy Earth. What do you say, Trihexa?" "HMPH, I already know what I want, so I will not lose." "What do you want if you win?" "I'm not telling you." "Why not?" She pouted at him and he had to fight the urge to go pat her on the head like he would Tiamat and the heavenly dragons. "Because I said so. It will make the battle more interesting if I knew. Then, depending on what it is, I would have a greater incentive to beat you or you me." You know what, let's make a bet on it then, if you really do want to know." "Yeah, I do." "Alright then. I will give you 3 hints, and that is it. If you don't guess what I want, then you will not know until if I win our fight. If you win, then not only will you know what I want, but I will even give you a little something." "Like what?" Issei asked curiously, and Issei smirked at her playfully. "A kiss." "A kiss." He watched as her eyes widened before a smile broke her face. "I knew you had a thing for little ol' me. Don't confuse the situation. You wanted an incentive, right? Well, here is one. Based on your reaction to me, it should be enough for you." "Alright, give me the hints. But you should get those lips puckered, Issei-kun. I'm sure you won't disappoint though." "Sure. Anyway, the first hint is simple, it won't benefit me at all." "The fuck?" the apocalyptic beast asked confusedly. "Hint number 2, you won't ever be harmed by anyone once you get back to Earth." Hint number 3, it's something that you want that is deep inside your heart, even if you may not admit it to yourself." "The hell? How am I supposed to get this?" Issei heard her mumble to herself and crossed his arms over his chest. I'll give you a couple of tries to get it right, Trihexa. Goo, she made a troubled face and casted her eyes sideways in thought. It doesn't benefit him, so I can cross out my first assumption. Also, I won't be harmed when on Earth. Is that because no one will know it is me, or will they know but decide against attacking me out of fear? Then there is the last hint. Something I want that I don't want to admit it to myself. What do I want anyway? Trihexa thought to herself as she scanned through the possible answers in her head. Furrowing her eyebrows, she briefly went through everything she remembered from when she was born to now. She was among the first beings that was created upon the birth of this galaxy. She never cared for the other two that were created except for the fact that she held a dislike towards them because they tried to kill her once or twice, just as she tried to them. Exploring the universe and destroying anything in sight, may it be planets, stars, anything. Some of the planets had some degree of life on them and she was the sole purpose for their extinction. However, it never seemed to be enough. Against her better judgment, she completely surrendered herself to her instincts and became what she is often portrayed as, an evil, vile monster that should have never been made. Now that she thinks about it, why did she do so in the first place? Why did she willingly let herself get lost in her power? Was it predetermined? Did she not have a say in whether or not it was going to happen? If it was destined to happen, then why is it that I am in control now? There has to be another explanation to this. It wasn't until after a long time of destroying anything in her path. She came upon Earth and found it to be a habitable planet with factions that had powers. She wanted to destroy it, and when she went to follow through, she was attacked by them. They all aimed to team up on her, and after a lengthy battle she was sealed by the biblical God. Even now she can still recall the look of pure disgust on God's face, and she made it her resolve that she would kill him. But someone beat her to it. This man Issei did, and in doing so indirectly freed her from the seal she was placed under. When he killed God, she sensed the power he held and found herself drawn to it. She wanted to feel more of it. That was when she decided to make him her mate once she gathered up all her lost power. He was the only one that could stand a chance at beating her on his own. That thought sent goosebumps all over her skin. The thought of having an equal to hold and cherish, to love and care for, a lover yet a friend. Friend. That word always tasted funny on her tongue. And yet it felt nice when she used that word in conjunction with Issei. Actually, the thought of having him as a lover was pleasant to her, and she never had those thoughts about anything or anyone ever in her whole life. Friend, was he the one that she wanted as a friend? Trihexa widened her eyes as she saw Issei smirk deceitfully at her before it vanished, leaving a calm expression on his face. Is that it? If I want him as a friend, then who is to say that I didn't want friends in general? I was alone, that much is true. I was always alone, yet all I wanted was a friend. That doesn't seem right to me. But it's all I can come up with at the moment. You want me to become your friend, is that it? This fits into the first hint, but what about the other two? Got it in one, Trihexa. I expected you to guess a few times, but you proved me wrong. Now, let me explain a bit. I will save the criteria of hint 2 for later, so allow me to explain hint 3 to you. It's quite simple. You were alone. In the midst of destruction, you couldn't find the one thing you wanted, and that was a friend in someone. When you destroy something, you never found someone to build it up again. And in doing so you began to lose your judgment. You gave into your instincts, am I right? Yes, you are. As I thought. That was why you attacked Earth and in the end got sealed up. You must have came back to your senses after you lost some of your power. You may not think you need someone, but in reality you do, and denying something that your heart craves for is a childish thing to do. At the end of the day, I don't want you to be lonely anymore. Back then, I only had my mother and she helped me through some tough times. I want to help you as well in any way I can. That doesn't answer the second hint. That easy. I won't allow a friend to get hurt when I am around. You may be more than strong enough to fend off against any foe, but I won't let you do so alone. Issei looked on at Trihexa, who turned her face away from him slightly, but he noticed how her cheeks were slowly gaining a red color to them. Anyhow, now that you know what I want, don't make this an excuse for you not giving me your all come our fight. If you manage to beat me, then I have no qualm against being your mate. Moving on, you managed to figure out what I want, so it is only fair that I follow through with my word. Issei made his way over to Trihexa, who had a small victorious smile on her lips. Stopping right in front of her, he looked down slightly to meet her ruby orbs and wrapped an arm around her waist. Using his unoccupied hand, he gently raised her chin and watched as her eyes fluttered close and she gently puckered her lips together. Trihexa could feel him leaning in and was waited, in anticipation for his lips to finally meet hers. The words he said earlier had gotten to her, or rather her heart that is. During his whole monologue she could hear her heart thumping loudly in her ears, and now she would be able to alleviate some of the sexual tension she was having. It was then that she felt a pair of lips touch the corner of her lips. As soon as it was there was as fast as it had gone, and she found herself snapping open her eyes only to see Issei back to his original position, 10 feet away from her. "I never did say where I was going to kiss you," he said with smirk, and she narrowed her eyes at him in frustration. "You couldn't have let me have this. Doesn't matter, since when I beat you, we will be doing this and so much more for a long, long time. Nevertheless." She stopped mid-sentence as the area slowly started to crack like glass. A red aura slowly crept in and the apocalyptic beast found herself glaring murderously at the uninvited energy. "Seems that we are being interrupted. I will see you when I regain my powers and then we will fight. Goodbye, Issei-kun." Issei heard how she said that through clenched teeth and concluded that Great Red and her were not acquaintances in any way. Nodding his head, he gave a final wink towards her direction along with a smile. "See you later, Hexa-chan." Cutting off the connection between the two, Trihexa watched Ed in mild longing as his form disappeared from view. Upon his departure the cracks and red aura that started to creep into the area had disappeared, leaving Trihexa and her thoughts to herself. It was then that an angry scowl appeared on her face as a black and red aura shot out from her, causing the door to develop multiple large cracks on its surface. Her hair had lifted up slightly due to the sudden increase in power, and once it settled back down on her head, she angrily blew some strands away from her face. "That red bitch better not think of stealing him from me," she said in a dark manner before going back to the damaged doors. "As soon as I go to bed, the sooner I can challenge Issei. Hope it doesn't take too long." Ellipsis. "So, Red-chan, enjoy the show. I saw both you and the Ouroboros dragon watching. I expected you to at least put up some form of concealment, but you didn't." Issei asked with a smirk as he was once again in the dimensional gap standing in front of Great Red in all her glory. Said golden-eyed dragoness narrowed her eyes a bit at him in slight suspicion. "As a matter of fact I did enjoy it, seeing that man squirm in pain like an insect was very satisfying. However, I am rather curious as to how you got so strong. Don't even try to say that you went all out, because you and I both know that is false. Good that you enjoyed, I did as well. As to how I got so strong, well, it really is amazing how much stronger you can become when training every day, and while it is true that I didn't go all out, it was mostly to avoid destroying the Earth. That strike ID that caused a giant fissure to create could have easily cut through to the core of this planet if I didn't nerf it. Although, what I am curious about is this: why were you being dishonest with me, Great Red?" "What are you talking about?" the true dragon asked with a frown, and noticed how he was looking at her with a sharp gaze. While she had an idea of what he was implying, she did so for his own good, or at least in her mind she did. "When I first came here I asked if you could explain the supernatural world to me. You did, but you left out some things, didn't you? For instance, you neglected to tell me about Samael or Trihexa. I'm more curious than mad if anything, so you might as well tell me." Fine. Yes, I didn't tell you about them because I didn't want you to go seeking them. Knowing you and your love for battle, you would have confronted the two in order to fight them. Am I wrong?" "Hey, not really. Either way, I would have found them eventually. Unfortunately for you, I will go seeking them. But I just want to talk with them, that is all. While I don't want you to, I know that it is your decision to do so." Just what? You really are an interesting person, Issei-kun. Only you can make me feel concerned with someone other than myself. I just don't want to see you hurt or killed, for that matter. What are you do this to me? Easy. I'm your friend, Red-chan. I will always be your friend, and no one can take that away from us. The others, they will undoubtedly develop feelings for you. If they want to be my friends as well, I don't see the problem," Issei said with a slight tilt to the head, and Great Red shook her head slowly at him. You really are an enigma. Sometimes you are completely oblivious on this subject, yet other times you aren't. The Ouroboros dragon, Ophis, is she here in the dimensional gap as of now? No, she left after your fight with God. She must have had her fill on fighting me for today. Can I come here then? In my real body? Sure, I don't see why not. But, what could you want to say outside of your dream realm where it is only the two of us? Oh, no reason. I'll be right back, Red-chan. Issei's form distorted and vanished as he woke himself up, leaving a curious yet eager dragoness in his wake. She didn't notice the excited smirk that was on his face though. Black orbs snapping open from their slumber. Issei practically jumped out of his bed before putting on his trademark black clothing. Lacing up his combat boots, he left his hood down and was about to open up a portal to the dimensional gap until he paused his action. He teleported to Tiamat's room and stealthily made his way over to her bed to make sure she was sound asleep. To his relief she was, and he made idly note of the position of the moon through the window. About 3 in the morning, Doesn't matter anyway. Created a portal on his right side. He casted his hand inside and withdrew the sword he used against the biblical god just the day before. Strapping it to his waist, he casted another glance at the blue-haired dragoness and smiled a bit before creating a tear in the space. Heaving a loud sigh, his face melted back to a calm facade and he stepped into the tear, which fully closed after his whole body went in. Ellipsis. Great Red waited in keenness at Issei's arrival, and when a tear opened up in the dimensional gap, she was instantly focused on that one area. What she didn't expect was for him to come in fully garbed in the outfit he was in when he faced God along with the sword. Issei-kun, why are you wearing that? Isn't it obvious? Great Red, I'm here for my fight, he stated as if it was the most common thing in the world. The Dragon of Dragons widened her eyes and looked at him for any sign of deceit, but could only find calmness in his eyes. Are you sure, Issei-kun? I mean, I won't hold back. You may even die if you aren't prepared. I wouldn't expect any less from our fight, Great Red. However, I am sure about this. Also, don't think of me as someone you know as of now. For the duration of this battle we are enemies. Understand? Yeah, okay. Well, if you are really sure, then I won't stop you, Issei. He nodded his head at her and waved his hand over the area. The whole area started to shake uncontrollable before it stopped abruptly. I have detached us from the realm of existence. This will ensure that our conflict doesn't affect the rest of the universe and to change our perception of time. As of now, time is going to move faster than in the real world. 1 hour outside is 10 days in here. I'm impressed. Sigh, let's get this over with, and then after this I will make sure to heal your injuries, my future mate. We'll see about that. Count us down, Great Red. Alright, on go. 1, 2, 3, go. Just as the signal to start exited her mouth, Great Red was forced to dodge to the left in order to avoid a giant blast of energy that exploded right behind her. The aftershock was enough to get her off balance, but when she looked to find Issei, the man she was looking for appeared right underneath her. Utilizing her blind spot, he cocked his GHT arm back and enveloped his hand in cosmic power. Launching the fist at her belly, he was rewarded with a pained grunt before Great Red's form shimmered into a million red pixels. So this is your illusion, huh? Impressive, he trailed off as he turned around to see the dragoness floating there with a slightly angered look on her face. Her body dissipated once more and his body was hit by a fork. That made him fly back a couple hundred meters. Getting control of his body, he saw that Great Red was standing in his previous location, tail extending in a swinging motion. Smirking to himself, he jerked his head as a popping sound was heard from his neck. Clenching his left hand, he increased the gravity of the space and found that Great Red was only mildly affected by the pressure. Disappearing in a black flash, he reappeared in front of Great Red and gathered up some light energy. Firing it at the dragoness, he used the moment of her evading in order to withdraw his sword. Using his god-like speed, he reached the back of the large dragon and plunged his sword straight down to the hilt, eliciting a pained roar from the dragon. The Dragon of Dragons shook her body in attempt to get him off, which succeeded, although Issei gathered up an orange energy in his hand and fired it off in her direction. The blast hit home as Great Red's scales slowly started to melt off before regenerating back. Growling in anger, The red dragoness fired off a volley of red energy beams and Issei blocked them off using his sword. Instincts kicking in, he swirled around and blocked the large yellow horn that was threatening to impale him. Gold eyes met his black ones and he smirked at her before his form disappeared in the same manner as Great Red's illusion. "What?" she said, confused, and looked around to find out where he is. And when that proved useless, she tried to sense his power, but that wasn't working at all as well. It was then that she heard a roaring sound that was increasing in volume. Looking up, she widened her eyes a bit at the extremely large meteor that was sailing her way. The size of the rock easily exceeded her size and was about the same size as the sleeping dragon. Clicking her tongue in frustration, her scales started to emit even more of her red aura as she slowly opened up her mouth. At the back of her throat was an intense red color that seemed to condense. A few moments after, a powerful beam of energy shot out of her mouth and went on its way to intercept the meteor. When it did, a huge explosion took place and rocked the whole void landscape as chunks of rock were hurled in all directions. Suddenly, Issei charged at her through the midst of rock, and the true dragon didn't have enough time to dodge or block the oncoming carnage. An energy-clad fist rocked her world, and it took her a moment to realize that she was being sent back due to the force of the punch. A resounding shockwave brought her attention to Issei, who appeared next to her in an excellent show of speed. Issei didn't waste this chance as he delivered an axe kick to the dragoness before teleporting himself directly underneath her and punching her body to the side. Every time his fist connected, he could feel some of her scales break off due to the force, but they were regenerating at their usual pace. Teleporting himself once more, he primed his sword for a diagonal strike only to have her body disappear in an illusion before he could strike her. Jumping to the side, he blocked her claws and then ran his blade up the whole length of her arm. It seemed to have hurt her bad since. She gave another pained roar, and it was then that he felt her start to get angry. He had barely enough time to create an illusion and teleport away from the dragoness as she chomped on the last place. He was with her row of razor-sharp teeth. Although she seemed to have anticipated that, as the first thing he saw when he came to was a giant red wing that smacked into him. The familiar feeling of being sent flying was there once more, but this time before he could do anything, he saw a Great Red appear right above him. Her giant tail was sent right to his torso, and Issei felt some of his blood come up from his throat and started to drip out from his mouth. Great Red appeared right in line with his trajectory, and her scales once again started to give off more of her aura as she prepared to fire off another blast of energy. This time she was quicker in preparing the attack and fired it at him. Muttering a curse, Issei raised his sword as the space in front of him started to distort before a black hole opened up in the small area. When the red beam hit the black hole, it instantly got sucked up and disappeared. Looking at the area right above Great Red, Issei's aura flared a bit as the space began to distort once again. The space continued to distort before in its place stood a decently sized black hole that spit out the attack that Great Red had blasted at him just moments prior. Confused at the turn of events, she only had enough time to move over to the side so that instead of completely enveloping her whole body, it now only hit the right side of her. Wiping the trickle of blood from his lips, Issei sheathed his sword momentarily before dashing at Great Red. Grabbing her horn with two hands, he started to swing her whole body around in a concentric circle. After reaching a satisfying velocity, Issei threw her body in a random direction. Once he completed the action, he summoned two more meteors, both of the same size as his last. But this time he broke apart one of them. Trapped Great Red's flying body in one. Closing off the meteor, he motioned for them to collide with one another, and after doing so he created a ball of cosmic energy in his hand. The ball condensed till sparks of electricity bounced off of it and the air around it seemed to grow heavy. Looking up at the two meteors, he threw the condensed ball at them and waited for the results. The first thing that happened was the collision between the two meteors, and immediately afterwards did the condensed ball of energy join the fray. A single flash appeared in the void-like space before an enormous light overtook the area along with the sound of an explosion. Luckily the light only lasted for about 10 more seconds until it died down, and when it did he saw a Great Red floating amongst the epicenter of the explosion, breathing heavily with cuts and scrapes lining her body, crimson blood flowing freely from her wounds. "Why you, no, Pant, you really, are tough. I never thought Pant, you, would be a BLE, to get power over illusions like me. the golden-eyed dragoness said in between breaths and looked at Issei. I figured out how to do so only about 200 years ago, so I am fairly new to the scene. Either way, this is probably the most entertaining fight I had with anyone. Hee, the same can be said for me, you really are worth fighting, Issei. But, I hope you know, that I am still ready to fight. I wouldn't expect anything less, Great Red. The two smirked at each other before vanishing from their spots and the sounds of shockwaves can be heard. Ellipsis. Gah, blue-green eye slowly oh. Penet as the morning sun shined through the window, bathing the room in its warm light. Tiamat groggily pulled herself up into a sitting position and popped her joints instinctively. Releasing a sigh, she got up and went to the bathroom to freshen up before heading to the kitchen. After doing so, Tiamat arrived in the kitchen but was slightly surprised to see that Issei was not there. Where is he? He doesn't seem like the one to sleep in, but then again, her train of thought trailed off until a smile overtook her features. This is my chance to impress him. When he wakes up, I will have breakfast done for him. Although I never cooked before, so the dragoness made a slightly troubled face, but shook it off and a determined look appeared in her eyes. Ellipsis. Ha, you really are something else, Great Red. Issei said with a tired smile as he gazed at the large red dragoness before him. His clothes were tattered and some parts were stained red in blood. The sleeve on his left arm was torn off, revealing a muscled and well-defined appendage that had large claw marks that ran up and down his arm. His stomach had a horizontal gash across it while blood was oozing down from his head due to a cut on his cranium. He was breathing heavily but his eyes had an unyielding eagerness in them, probably at the fight he was currently engaged in. HHMPH, I can say the same to you, Great Red. Said in reply as she lazily floated in the air. However, she wasn't fooling him or even herself. Issei could tell that she was being pushed far beyond any limit that she experienced until now. In conjunction with the wound on her arm, she now had several cuts going all over her 100-meter body, with the largest running from her head to her tail. Her golden horn on her nose was broken towards the tip of it and her right eye was closed because of the cut that was right above her eyelid. Both fighters were exhausted, in the physical aspect that is. For Great Red and Issei, neither of them have experienced a fight as intense and adrenaline pumping as the one they were in now against each other. Issei suddenly charged at Great Red and ducked under a rouge swipe before raising his now unsheathed head sword in order to block her large tail from hitting him head-on. Regaining his balance, he saw a volley of boulder-sized energy blasts coming his way and he held his sword up towards them. The blasts touched the blade, they instantly disappeared. Right above Great Red, a small black hole started to spit out the few blasts of red energy that was once fired at Issei but now is propelling towards the person who originally fired them. Unlike before though, Great Red saw the attack coming just in time, but it was then that she noticed something off about herself. When she tried to dodge the attack, her insides and muscles became stiff for no reason and it was hard for her to move, thus the attack hitting its target. Explosions rang out as she was keeled over a bit, just in time to Issei appear in a black flash in front of her. Although just like seconds prior her body didn't want to move at all, almost as if she lost all control. Helplessly, she could only prepare herself as Issei reeled back his leg and kicked her right in the face. She was sent back flying only to be rebounded by him, who narrowly managed to get behind her in time. Issei sheathed his sword and breathed in a deep breath before putting his hand up to his mouth and blowing out half a dozen flames that were shaped into Eastern dragons. The flame dragons instantly went to their target, Great Red, and each one looped around her large body. When all of them were fully wrapped around, their temperatures increased as they merged together and became a cocoon of bright orange flames. After a few more seconds, the flames receded swiftly and then exploded on her body with a vengeance. The true dragon cried out in pain as her scaled were singed off and now they were taking a much longer time to regenerate, unlike before. You're finished. Great Red, you put up an extremely good fight but in the end you were not the victor. Don't decide things too quickly. I can still. She stopped in he midst of her sentence when she realized that her whole body felt cold from the inside out. She wrenched her neck to the cut on her arm to see the wound shine blue until the color disappeared. That's right. Every cut that I gave you, I injected some pretty nasty ice in there. Unlike most, this kind of ice acts very slow and will slowly freeze your body internally, starting with your Sklees, all the way down to the very fibers that make them up. Now tell me, how do you expect to win this battle if you have no way of defending yourself? He asked with a wry smirk sent to her direction. Upon his smirk, he coughed up a bit of blood into his hand, but that didn't bother him as he wiped the crimson fluid onto his tattered clothes. Who do you, Great Red started with anger clear in her eyes, who do you think I am? I am Great Red, the Apocalypse Dragon, the true Red Dragon Emperor, and most importantly the Dragon of Dragons. I will not submit like some weakling, even to you, wit. Out fighting till I can no longer stay conscious. So bring it on, Issei. The Dragon of Dragons yelled out to Issei, and silence reigned for a few moments between the two. Hey, he smiled a bit at his longtime friend. You really are my kind of dragoness, you know that. If you said anything else, I would have seriously misjudged your integrity. Very well, because I see you as an equal and because I respect you so much, I'm going to do some things that are going to hurt. Let's end this like true dragons should. Red-chan. A tender smile stretched onto his face, but any emotion was gone from his face the next second. She didn't know what hit her the next moment. The only thing that she knew was that Issei disappeared from his position, and then she felt an explosion of pain coming from her side. Since she couldn't move her body at all, save for a little mobility in her neck, the red dragoness couldn't see the attack coming. Issei outstretched his right arm and pushed some of his power to the tattoo on his arm. In doing so, the tattoo glowed black as a rune of the same color appeared in the palm of his hand. Pointing it to the Apocalypse Dragon, the rune glowed a few times before disappearing from view. It wasn't long for the same rune to appear once again, but this time it appeared right below Great Red's position. It lit up while giving off Issei's trademark iridescence aura, and a force field erected itself around Great Red, the diameter of the sphere easily being about 1,000 meters or so. Without skipping a beat, he closed his eyes and flared his aura to tremendous levels. The cosmic energy suddenly breaking off from him and slowly stirring in its place. A clap of thunder and a flash of lightning appeared within the heart of the newly created cosmic storm as several loud explosions rang off from other parts of the storm. Fortunately, the tempest was big enough to stretch into the force field and cover Great Red completely. The once calm storm was now as violent as a hurricane, and the lightning strikes and explosions were becoming more frequent. He gave a final smirk of eagerness until he dissipated into particles, revealing that he was an illusion. The ray. Issei was already in the middle of using the cosmic electricity from the storm while empowering the attack with his own energy as well. His left arm was completely encompassed with crackling lightning that changed color at every moment. From green to blue to orange and so forth. Seeing the outline of Great Red, he released the attack at her with impeccable speeds. Great Red, however, sensed the attack that gave off an extremely large energy signature. She knew she couldn't move due to the freezing of her muscles, most of them anyway, but that didn't mean she couldn't still use her power of illusion to appear somewhere else with a clone taking her place. Just as she was going to do that, she realized that despite calling upon her power, she couldn't form an illusion at all. The hell? Why isn't it working? Don't tell me it is this Issei, unable to finish her train of thought due to the large amount of cosmic electricity hitting her square in the chest. It was quite unlike anything she has ever felt before. While his punches and attacks hurt pretty damn bad, especially the part with the meteors and the ball of condensed energy, but this attack was even worse. It felt like her whole body was quite literally tearing itself apart, cell by cell, before piecing itself back together. Not to mention, that the ice in her body was reacting quite well, unwell for her, with the lightning only served to amplify the already horrible pain she was feeling. If that wasn't enough, Issei concentrated on the ice he implanted into her body, and by simply making a gesture, small spikes of ice erupted from her insides. He made sure to not hit any vital points in doing so, and it was the perfect way to induce a large amount of pain without killing her. Her roar of pain and frustration broke through air. But he continued on and summoned up a large comet that was about half the size of the meteors he made from earlier. Conjuring up about 2 more, he sent them towards her location, the GHT color of the flames easily shining through the darkened storm. Using the storm as cover, he made his way to Great Red and saw that the comets hit their mark and exploded in a blazing inferno. Her body was sent sailing a few feet from the impact and he went and grabbed her tail roughly. Jerking her reptilian tail towards himself, he enhanced his fist with some energy and delivered a powerful uppercut right to her large jaw. However, he didn't let go of her tail, and when her body threatened to go backwards, he yanked her to him once again. Pulling his leg back, he gave one last jerk to her tail and flew towards her body before kicking her square in the chest. Deciding to put an end to the fight, Issei pushed his hands together slowly and the cosmic storm that was around them began to wrap around the true dragon's body. Right when his two hands finally met one another, her body was now encompassed by the storm and he created 11 illusions of himself in preparation. Sending them off to surround the hostage Great Red, he began his attack, commanding a group of 4 to use fire, another group to use water, the next group to use lightning, and the final group to use rock, earth. The group using fire centered their energies into one point and a giant spherical red and blue flames sparked to life. The group using water did the same as the previous group and their conjoined powers created a huge ball of black and blue water. After them, the lightning group generated a cosmic lightning bolt, just like the one he used before, and shaped it into a ball like the others. The final group, with the real Issei involved, generated a big brown and black ball of earth. As a last touch, the clones and Issei imputed every last ounce of power he had left in his reserves to their desired elements. Each elemental attack gained a condensed coating of that changed colors every moment. On K, the groups fired off their attacks and once done the clones all vanished, leaving only a panting Issei in the space. The 4 attacks met their mark, not that he expected they wouldn't, and the reaction was almost instantaneous. The fire and water seeped into the shell that harbored Great Red and a flurry of sparks and lightning came to life both inside and out. The fire and earth on the other hand stayed on the outside of the encompassed Great Red. The inferno ball melting the earth attack, but that only produced a liquidly fire which, just like the lightning and water, went into the cocoon of cosmic storms. It was quiet for a few minutes, the only sound being Issei breathing heavily and the sparks on the cocoon. Until the cosmic power he implemented into the attacks took effect. A few bright flashes appeared in his vision and he closed his eyes just in time for a giant explosion to take place. His body was sent back due to the multiple shockwaves of the explosion, and a burning tingling on his skin made him know that radiation was being emitted at extreme levels. Luckily, he wasn't affected by such levels of radiation. Although, if he watched the explosion he would see the very space that he detached from the dimension gap was slowly starting to disintegrate. Peeking his eyes open, he saw that the spot where Great Red was now glowing like a sun with wisps of energy floating around. Finally, the energy gradually disappeared and he made his way over to her. His tattoo glowed as he activated one of his saved seals and instantly he felt his energy and fatigue disappear. The wounds he received from the fight stitched themselves back up and his torn clothes repaired and lost any sign of blood or tear. Great Red's large body was falling down due to her not being able to keep afloat by herself anymore. Her scales were singed to black in some areas and her wounds were even worse than before. Golden eyes blurry and detached as she was fighting hard to not slip into unconsciousness. Just as her body was going to let gravity take hold, she felt herself stop in her plummeting descent. Issei teleported over to his friend and ran a hand that was glowing in golden energy up and down her body. Taking note of her scales gaining back their red, vibrant color and her increasing energy, he nodded to himself in satisfaction. Issei-kun, Great Red mumbled tiredly and he smiled a bit bashfully since he can only heal her wounds and not fatigue. I want to see you, come here, pausing in her healing process. He gently floated over to her face so she can see him and placed a hand on her snout and resumed his healing process. Yes, Red-chan. Just as he finished her once broken horn was healed and he smiled a bit before turning his attention back to her only to see her staring at him very intently. Without a warning, her body shined in a red color and his hand that as on her snout was now feeling nothing but air. Moments later did the red color recede. And Issei widened his eyes a bit at the person that was in Great Red's place. Issei-kun, the woman said with a smile on her face. She was in her late teens, just like Issei is, and was a solid 6 feet tall with milky skin. Her vibrant red hair reminded him a lot of Deidre, but this woman's hair only reached the small of her back. A pair of golden eyes were pointed in his direction and he felt a nostalgic feeling at his captivation with her eyes. The woman's clothing is what intrigued him the most. Thought. She was wearing a white shirt along with a black leather jacket that only reached the middle of her stomach. If he was to look on the back of the jacket he would see a red dragon in mid-flight. Her next article of clothing was a pair of blue skinny jeans that hugged her rear quite well and made her hips seem even wider. To top it all off she had on a pair of combat boots, much like his, and a pair of leather gloves on her hands. Red Chan? He asked with a smile and she nodded her head before trying to float over to him. However, she ended up taking a sharp breath as she felt unhealed wounds open up on her skin. Seeing that, Issei quickly made his way over to her, but before he could lay a hand on her she grabbed his hand. Placing his hand right over her heart, which was beating erratically. She looked at him with half-lidded eyes. Taking that as a sign to continue, his hand glowed gold once again as her wounds slowly closed. She is definitely the biggest out of the others, as too. What he insinuating? It was her breasts to be exact. Both her and Trihexa were both well developed enough that it practically strained against their clothing, but he could tell that Great Red was just a bit bigger than 666. Then again, most of the women he met were not just gifted in the chest department, but also had night-perfect bodies. He could clearly tell from Great Red's jeans that her calves were toned and muscled from the way they looked against the fabric. Do you feel that? Her usual gruff voice snapped him out of his musings and he tilted his head at her. Motioning with her head, Issei followed the gesture to where his hand was located. Yeah, your heart is thumping really loud. What about it? It should be obvious why I'm like this. Why? Sigh, let me show you. Taking his hand off of her chest. Great Red put Issei's hand right on her right cheek. Even though he isn't directly over her heart, he can identify the sudden increase of her heart rate. It's because of you, only you can make someone as feared as I feel this way. Quote. I admit it, I lost, but knowing that I lost to you just makes me more determined to fight you again. Hey, that's my line, you know. He said with an amused smirk on his face and got Great Red to laugh at him. Ha ha ha, only you would say something like that, Issei-kun. You know you have a really adorable laugh, Red Chan. Quote! Her face suddenly lit up in a blush that matched her hair. Glaring at him, she put on a slight scowl onto her face. Hee, I was right. You do look absolutely precious when you blush, not to mention your scowl just makes it cuter. Using the hand that was on her cheek, he gently rubbed her blushed cheeks before very sneakily making his way up to the top of her head. Goo, why must you say these things so suddenly? Widening her eyes, she tried herself from continuing. Looking up she saw Issei rubbing her head affectionately and blushed brightly as another purr escaped her throat. Issei. Please stop. Getting his fill of Great Red purring, he withdrew his hand from her head and look on as she is taking deep breaths along with blushed cheeks, hefty chest ving up and down making her already large breasts look even bigger. Haha, I wondered what you sounded like when you purr. Such a beautiful purr you have there, Red Chan tilde. He said with a playful smile. Until he felt her wrap her arms around his neck securely. Issei-kun, she said in a breathless tone, which got a head tilt from him. You remember our deal, right? Of course. If you win, you get to command one thing from me. If I win, then you would proclaim yourself as mine. Exactly. So since you won, I'm yours. Only you are worthy enough to have my heart, Issei-kun. She said as her eyes moistened a bit during her response. Issei noticed this and furrowed his brows a bit. Red Chan, are you going to cry? No, I don't. Red Chan, he asked in concern, but she turned her head downwards so he couldn't see her face. I'm just really happy, I don't know why my body is acting like this. It's only natural, I mean you do have feelings like everyone else. She remained quiet for a moment. I'm happy you came here. To this dimension, and that I was able to meet you, Issei-kun. To be honest, I don't know what I would do without you. Probably just spend the rest of my days in the dimensional gap alone, without a purpose. Smiling to himself, he wrapped his arms around her waist and pulled her into him. Nuzzling her hair with his cheek, he chuckled a bit. Hey, you don't have to worry about that. I'm glad I met you too, Red-chan. Like hell I am going to let you be alone after getting to know you, however you should know that there are other people that are alone too. He finished cryptically and she snorted in amusement. I don't feel comfortable with the idea of Trihexa being near you. If we are putting our cards on the table here, then you should know that she hates me as much as I hate her. I figured as much. Either way, she's alone too, you know. Unlike you, she was never able to have any freedom and was locked in a sealed door. Good. Do you know how many planets she destroyed? She was a nothing but a monster before and now. You're only half right. I do know how many planets she destroyed since I can read the formation of past, present, and future planets. The same goes for galaxies, stars, and etc. Nevertheless, she never meant to become what she was in the past. Like you, she was alone, and unlike you, her domain of power isn't as easy to control as yours is. The power of destruction is not something to be played around with. She never even knew that she surrendered herself to her instincts until after she was sealed. I don't know. I guess I should tell you. But I made an offer to her. The same one I made to you many years ago. You challenged her to a fight. Great Red asked with a slightly surprised look on her face, and he just nodded his head a bit. Yes, I did. Supposedly, when I defeated the biblical god she saw and wanted me for a mate. Unfortunately for her, her power has been lost due to inactivity. I wasn't going to fight her without giving her a fair chance, so we both agreed to a fight. So the same thing with Midgardsormr and her power. Exactly the same as her. Both hasn't used their power in a long time and now must enter a stasis-like state to regain it. So what are the rewards for winning? Hey, if she wins, I will become her mate. If I win, she will come with me back to Earth as a friend. But what if she won't do anything? If I'm right, then she won't lose herself to her power, and if she ever gets the urge to destroy, I can take her to a rogue planet or spar with her. Fine. I can't really say anything else since it is your life to begin with. What about the other girls though? Give it a few more 100 years and I might end up coming to like them as well. So, you aiming for a harem or something like that? What harem? I don't have a harem. Although, our fellow dragons do have harems, right? Or at least the males do. Hey, that can be a bit troublesome, but I am sure that as a species we can move past that obstacle. We've been doing that since the first dawn of the supernatural, nay. What are you planning, Issei-kun? Oh nothing. I just would like to see our brethren come together. Oh, Great Red said, interested before she yawned tiredly. Looks like someone needs to get to bed soon so she can replenish her strength. Seems so, Arg. I feel like I am about to pass out right here. Hey, hold on a bit more. I just need to do one more thing to heal you completely. What is that? Great Red yelped girlishly as Issei moved her head up so she was looking up at him. She saw him stare at her with an intensity that made her skin grow goosebumps and instinctively leaned forward towards him. Issei smiled a bit and followed her lead. As the two closed their eyes simultaneously, their lips crashed against one another, and at first the two made no movements, simply relishing in the taste of each other. It was then that Great Red led him into her tighter and deepened the kiss, pouring all the passion and desire she held for him for so long. Issei responded in kind and roamed his hands up and down her back, her intakes of breath signifying that he was doing something good. He tightened his hold on her waist, and her breasts were now fully pressed into his toned and chiseled chest. The smacking of lips was the only noise that was made between the two. But it was then that Issei decided to be bold and slowly opened his mouth. Extending his tongue to rub over Great Red's lips, she wasted no time in granting him access to her mouth. Their two tongues met each other and writhed and twirled around one another. Great Red was moaning now and was unconsciously rubbing herself onto his leg while Issei gave sporadic groans of pleasure. Although Issei concentrated on his power, and a golden light can be seen going from his throat and crossing over to Great Red's. The golden light went into her mouth and then into her throat, where it disappeared. She gave a hum of approval as she felt her insides heat up, and now she didn't feel any sort of anomaly wrong with her. After a few more minutes, the two broke apart with a single string of saliva connecting the two before it broke apart. The two dragons licked their lips in delight while Great Red suddenly felt herself become lightheaded. Grabbing onto her, he picked her up bridal style and heard her snoring a bit. She must have really been tired, I can't blame her though. If I didn't have an emergency seal on me then I would be the same way. Looking around the area, Issei's sweat dropped as he noticed that he was standing in nothingness. So the section of the dimensional gap that I made non-existent couldn't handle the pressure between Red Chan and I. Oh Issei said with a shrug and disappeared in a black flash. Ellipsis. Arriving in the living room of his house, Issei frowned when he noticed that the sun has already broken up past the horizon. Looking due at Great Red one more time, he noticed that she was curled up to him just like Tiamat was the first time he brought her to his house. Oh, the memories. I think I got it this time. A voice rang out from the kitchen and Issei turned his body to the dining room since his house has an open floor plan. Tiamat appeared from the kitchen and made her way to the table where 2 plates were set up. She at a pan in hand scraped the eggs onto the plates along with some ham. Oh, when he gets back he has to be impressed with my handiwork. If not then, stopping her sentence, Tiamat caught sight of Issei carrying a very familiar woman. Scanning the unconscious woman's features, she noted that the woman had the same color hair as Didrag, which is who she first thought the woman was, but the structure of her face was completely off from the heavenly dragon. This woman had a bit of a tomboyish look to her, but it worked really well for her. Not to mention, that this woman was even more developed Didrag in the breast department and was curvier than Albion in the hips. Issei-kun, what is up with the woman? She asked with a slight deadpan in her voice. Issei averted his eyes before looking veer to the food she placed on the plates. What's up with those eggs? Turning her head to the eggs she just cooked, her eyes widened as she noticed that the whole bottom part of the eggs were burned to a blackened crisp. Did you make those? For me? Ah, thank you very much, Tia-chan. Issei smiled at her but then tilted his head when the Dragon King dropped to her knees with a mortifying expression on her face. No, that was the 6th time I burned them, god damn it. He grew a large sweat drop and casted a glance at the sleeping Great Red. You would laugh at this moment, wouldn't you? Issei could only make a bitter smile at the blue-haired beauty known as Tiamat, who gave off a troubled groan. During the midst of her self-disappointment, he had carried the unconscious Great Red over to one of his spare rooms and returned back to the scene. Tia-chan, why don't you let me teach you how to cook? Tiamat looked back at him with comical teary eyes and sniffed a few times. Why you don't mind? Hee. Not at all, he said with a slight chuckle, and the Chaos Karma Dragon nodded her head and got herself off from the floor. It was then that she remembered the knocked-out woman he brought and looked at him pointedly. Who was that woman? It wasn't Didrag, since this one seemed more developed, and not to mention the aura she gave off was 10 times, no maybe more than what Didrag can give off. You weren't in your room in the morning as well, so what were you doing? As a knight and a friend, I deserve to know. Issei smiled seeing her act of confidence and went over to her and patted her head. She ended up purring a bit as he continued to rub her head before pausing his actions. You're right. You should know since you are going to be traveling around with me. That woman was the Dragon of Dragons. Great Red, or Red Chan as I call her. When I first came here, she was the one who found me and we were friends ever since. However, I made a deal with her that when I am strong enough, I will fight her, not for her title or monikers. If she won, I would become her mate. If I won, she will call herself mine. This doesn't make us mates in any way. As you can see by her condition, I won. Due to the results, I have asked her to come travel with us. There is no reason to be scared of her since she is just like you, a dragoness trying to make do with what the world is giving us. Upon finishing, he noticed that Tiamat was looking at him with widened eyes of astronomical proportions. Before he could continue though, she put her head down so she was looking at the floor. Great Red, do I even have a chance anymore with you? I tried to cook you some breakfast and even that I can't do. First, the 2 girls you mentioned you saved, and then Didrag and Albion, and now Great Red. Why did you even save me? When you have women who are much stronger and better looking than me, all holding some sort of affection to you. Why didn't you just let me be taken by the Tiamat. If you ever finish that sentence I will personally beat you to the ground harder than I did the biblical God. The Dragon King widened her eyes at both the slap he gave her on the head and the way he grabbed her shoulders roughly. Staring into his eyes, she noticed how the golden flecks swirled around much faster like they were agitated. Don't question my reasons for saving you. I saved you because I couldn't dare see a woman with as much beauty as you be harmed while I was around. I wasn't going to stand around and watch the devils have their way with you while you couldn't protect yourself. Sure, a part of me saving you has to do with my goal of unifying our species, but from then on it all has to do with you as a person. And don't you say that you aren't as beautiful as Great Red, Dedrag, Albion, and the others. You are beautiful. Do you understand that? You may not be as well developed as some, but compare yourself to other women on this planet and I can assure you that you beat most with beauty alone. By the way, I don't care if you are beautiful or not. That is merely a bonus. The one thing I care about is your will as both a dragon and a woman. Whether or not you accept that answer, I will always find you as mate material. She stood quiet with both blushed cheeks and also some unshed tears accumulating in her eyes. His grip got tighter as he gritted his teeth so hard she could hear them creak a bit. In my other home, I had no one. The only person I had was my mother and she is dead. And it's all because of him. I wouldn't be here Tota. Why if it wasn't for her and the joy I felt every day of my growing life was indescribable. When I came here to this dimension, I saw the conditions that my fellow species were in. Unlike in my previous home, you all were not the conceited and haughty bunch that I was accustomed to. So I thought, if I help them out then maybe I can share with them the same joy that my mother made me feel. I'll never forget the lessons she would give me since I couldn't attend school. I'll never forget how we talked about mundane things, simply enjoying each other's presence. I'll never forget the warmth and love she gave me, even if at times it was a bit more than I expected. That's why if I can make you feel cared for then maybe you can finally start enjoying life instead of being the trophy of accomplishment that the world has made you out to be. Do you understand now? Gulping down a lump in her throat, she nodded her head rapidly as a lone tear shed from her right eye. Launching herself onto him, she wrapped her arms around his neck and quiet, muffled sobs could be heard from her. Smiling fondly, he encircled his arms around her waist and nuzzled her hair with his cheek. Don't say that you are not worth my time. Because you always will be. I may meet other girls and you all may want the same thing, but if I can make you all happy then I can say that I did a good job. Also, you will always have one thing that none of the others have, and that is that you are my knight. A knight is only as strong as their blazing will towards the one they are protecting. And you can expect me to fight by your side when you need it. After a few more minutes, her sobs quieted down and she withdrew her face from him. I understand now, thank you, Issei-kun for everything. Oya, Tia-chan, you already said thank you enough. You're right. Maybe I should try to express my thanks in a more appropriate manner. Leaning forward, Tiamat deposited a chaste kiss on his lips that lasted about 6 seconds. But the passion that she put into it made it feel much more powerful. Issei, who was surprised at her abrupt boldness, didn't hesitate to recuperate the kiss. Breaking the kiss, Tiamat grinned sexily and winked her eye at him. What do you think? Should I do it more often? I definitely wouldn't complain. Ha ha ha. I anticipated you wouldn't. Now, you said, my previous home, and when I came to this dimension. You really aren't from here are you? No, I'm not. I came here about 3,000 years ago and during that time I was training. Are you upset? He frowned a bit at the possibility of her rejecting the fact he wasn't a natural born of this dimension, but to his relief she shook her head. Nope. It works out for me since without you I wouldn't be able to keep my freedom. Who else knows? Red-chan knows and now you do. I haven't told the other girls I met since I am a bit worried that they may not accept that I wasn't from here. You should tell them. I think they would want to know. I know I would. Anyway, you and your mother were very close, huh? Yeah, she was the only one that was both a mother and a friend. I would do anything to have her with me. Huh, you have a mother complex don't you? I don't know what you mean. You do. Wow, you perverted man tilde. Issei couldn't help but smile seeing that Tiamat has finally brightened up. Her voice was in a teasing tone and her blue-green eyes seemed to shine in happiness. Sigh, I was a growing dragon back in the day. She was a very gorgeous woman. It was natural that I would think about her in that way. Now that I think about it, she was more affectionate with me than what I thought a mother would be with her son. Wow, talk about incest. I wouldn't go that far. I say she is my mother, but in reality she isn't. But I didn't learn about that until the end of my time at my previous dimension. What? It's complicated, and in order for me to fully explain it to you that you would understand, whoa. It'll be too much of a hassle as of right now. We should focus on making breakfast and I will help you. Walking to the kitchen, Issei was followed by Tiamat, who upon seeing her chance took his arm and put it in between of her large bust while hugging onto the appendage. He briefly glanced at her, but he just got a smile in return, so he didn't think much of it. Going into the kitchen, he was met with pans and pots of burnt food. Seeing this, the Dragon King on his arm flushed in embarrassment until she felt him rub his cheek on her head and looked up to him, giving her an incorrigible smile. Releasing his arm from her hold, she watched as he went and got some eggs from an appliance that she didn't even know existed, but if she could guess, it would be that it kept the food fresh. Issei went to tea. He counter and got some spices and then turned on another appliance that Tiamat didn't know what was. Issei-kun, what are those things? I never seen anything like it before. That's because these are. Some things are from the other dimension. The large appliance that keeps things cool is called a refrigerator, while this is a stove. The fridge keeps food fresh while the stove cooks food at a much faster rate than a fire. It also cooks much better than a fire. Maybe that is why you burned the food, because you didn't know how to properly use the stove. That may be an explanation. What other ideas did you incorporate from the other dimension? The bathroom for one, as well as the sink right over there, both use pipes that I installed. Indoor plumbing would be the term used. The pipes are connected to a large well of water that is under where we are standing. The doors have locks on them and the house has insulation to keep in the heat. The gold and silver is merely a coating, to be honest. There is also the washer machine and drying machine to clean laundry. Turning his head to look at Tiamat, he was amused to see that she was acting all embarrassed out of the blue. Do you have anything for my boobs? Hey, letting out a small entertained smirk, she jumped up a bit and turned her face to the side while blushing furiously. Listen, I don't have anything to support my breasts and nothing to wear under my pants and hunching over a bit, she gave off a troubled groan while Issei quietly laughed to himself. You aren't wearing any underwear. And you call me a pervert, Tia-chan. It's not what? It's not. Blinking in question, Tiamat looked at the box that appeared in his hands that was outstretched for her to grab. Taking the brown box from him, she looked at the opening of it to see some apparel that were of different colors and some sort of undergarments. Those are called bras, while the undergarments are underwear. Try them on and find out your size. If none of them fit you, then let me know and I will make some of a bigger size. They should help with back support and to help keep your boobs from sagging, but to be honest, yours don't seem to be sagging at all despite their size. Finishing his sentence with a smirk, Tiamat looked to see him staring at her chest and blushed before going out of the kitchen. When she was gone, Issei's aura subtly increased before a piece of it broke off and started to take form. When it was done, another Issei stood in front of the original. I want you to go to the set coordinates of nebula that I had in mind for a new sword. Go there and, you know the rest, don't you? Of course I do. I am you after all. His clone smirked and disappeared in a black flash. Since when did I become a smart ass? Issei-kun, Tiamat poked her head through the opening of the kitchen in an embarrassed manner. Yes, Tia-chan. I need a bigger size. Really, now, what was the last size that the box went up to? Size D, I believe. I'm going to guess you need a DD cup size. Are you sure that this is right? I find it hard to believe that I am this big of a size. Issei eated another box and walked over to Tiamat. I'm sure it is right. Like I said, if you look at yourself from your perspective, you may not seem to be big. But, from another point of view, say mine for example, you do have big breasts. Here you go and let me know if I am right. Taking the box from him, she rushed down the hallway and into her room while Issei waited for his clone to come back. After a few minutes of waiting in silence, A black flash appeared right in front of him and clone Issei stood there with a sword in his hands. "Here you go," the clone of Issei said as he gave the sword to his creator. Issei smirked and expected the blade in his hands. The sword was about 3.5 feet long with a gold handle and a blue sheath that had white markings decorating it. Taking the blade from its covering, the space around Issei and his clone instantly cooled down to the point that a mist set in an ice started to cover the surroundings. The blade itself was a pristine silver, with a single blue line going down the length of the blade, but if you looked close enough you could see that there was a blue liquid that was swishing back and forth. He, Issei chuckled to him. Self unsheathed the blade which caused the mist and ice to recede. "It's wonderful. Then again I wouldn't expect anything less from myself." The clone smirked in reply and turned into cosmic energy before joining Issei's aura. Creating a small portal, Issei placed the sword in it and closed it up. As if on K, Tiamat came walking in with a blush still evident on her face. Was I right? The ONLY response he got was the darkening of her blush on her face. "Ah, no need to be embarrassed. Now, let's wash our hands first." Going over to the sink, he turned on the water and removed his gloves before soaping his hands and washing them. When he was done, Tiamat took his place and repeated the process. After completing the action, Issei took his time to ingrain the proper recipe and to teach Tiamat how to use the new appliances that she had no idea how to use. When the duo was done with breakfast, they went to the table and sat down with 2 plates filled with eggs, bread, ham, and different fruits. "Shouldn't we make some for Great Red?" Tiamat asked as she took a bit of her eggs with a fork, as Issei called the utensil. She gave an involuntarily hum of approval as the different herbs that were placed on the eggs practically exploded in flavor on her tongue. "That's not necessary. Judging by how quickly she is regaining her power, she will probably wake up mid-morning tomorrow. So what is the agenda for today then? Let's see." Issei picked up his cup of tea and took a sip of the contents. "After breakfast we are going to start your training. I have the whole day free so we can train until the early afternoon. Take a break and have lunch before doing training some more until dinner." "Is that how you train?" she asked accusingly, but Issei grinned at her while popping an apple slice in his mouth. "No, I actually didn't eat for a whole month and trained without break for most of my time here. A millennium ago is when I slowed down my training, mostly since my body needed to constantly improve if I wanted to unlock my true potential with my powers. Granted, I did train with them during that time. Cough, and non-stop." She choked on her food and gave him a bewildered look. "What about eating, sleeping, going to the bathroom, bathing?" "Going to the bathroom and bathing goes without saying. As for sleeping and eating, I didn't need to. I technically don't need to eat every day. But I want to since it tastes really good when done right. Anyway, your powers are over ice and water, right?" "Yes, how did you know?" "Your aura. One of the things I will expand upon is your detection of other presences. Mine is to the degree that I can see the color of your aura and by extension your life. I knew where you were when you were in trouble a few days ago because your aura was damaged. The dragon-slaying sword is what caused it." Issei looked around Tiamat and saw an ethereal blue aura that was encircling her in a calm manner. However, it was a LSO fast, a torrent undertone that told him of the destructive properties of her powers. Water in itself is both a blessing yet a curse to humans. It provides nourishment and at times can be the deciding factor between life and death. But it also is the cause of some calamity such as floods and typhoons that destroy civilizations. Ice, beautiful in appearance, it can also take away that beauty in a second. A simple touch can cause the one thing you worked hard for to shatter into a million tiny pieces. "You got all that just from my aura?" Tiamat asked with a slight blush on her face before shaking it off. "That explains how you found me, yet why were you around my area?" "I was working on a project, actually." "Project?" "Yes. I was making a pocket dimension of some sort. Similar to how the devils have the underworld and the angels have heaven, this pocket dimension is a hub for our kind. While smaller in size compared to heaven or the underworld, it is still big enough to be classified as a city worthy of being a capital of country." "Wow, how many more are there?" "As of now, only 6. 2 on this island, 2 in eastern part of China, and 2 in Europe." Although, none of them are reachable as of now. That is until I get in contact with the other dragons. Tomorrow, we are going to Europe. The northern part of the continent to be exact. I want to begin my recruitment with my old friend. She was the second person I met after Great Red. Since we are meeting her tomorrow, I may as well tell you who she is. It's Midgardsormr. The sleeping dragon. She's a girl. Wait, actually how did you get her to pay attention to you? Tiamat asked with interest, and Issei smiled a bit from the reminiscent of the first time meeting the lazy dragoness. It was a boo. 750 years since I came to this dimension and I was traveling without a place in mind. I stumbled upon Asgard and it was there that I saw a battle between Midgardsormr and her father, Loki. Back then I was still sort of skeptical, so I didn't interfere until another man clad in dark gray armor came to confront the two. At first, I thought he was going to help the dragon, but he actually attacked them both. Loki managed to hit the man, Thor as I would later be told, and was in the midst of imputing magic onto Midgardsormr in an attempt to control her so he could raise Asgard to the ground. It was then that I intervened and stopped the final phase of the controlling magic to finish. I didn't waste any time to attack Loki and forced him to retreat. Thor came back and attacked me for conspiring with, conniving serpent, as he called her. Long story short, I beat him, and just as the rest of the gods came, both Midgardsormr and I fled the area. Following her back to the depths of the ocean. We talked about what happened and she told me about how the Norse gods dislike her since they thought she was an impending doom that loomed over their heads. Soon after, I left, but no tea before promising to come back and talk to her. We have met about 4 times since then. What did the Norse gods do? And what about her constant sleeping? They didn't do anything after that, but from my last talk with her, Thor challenged her to a fight. Fighting back in self-defense, she ended up being cast onto shore and smashed a section of Asgard. Either way, he wouldn't have won. She was much stronger than the last time they engaged in combat. Upon my first departure, she slept in order to regain the power she lost. Seems like she enjoys the activity now, hee. Finishing up the last of his breakfast, Issei waited patiently for his night to finish hers. I see, I never would have known what she went through if you hadn't told me. But, I am curious about how the hubs work. In them there are places to rest, food, social gathering areas, and some books that involved tips about fighting and survival. Naturally, if dragons want to open up their own stores they can, as long as the why let me know. In all 6 of the hubs, as of now, we're all connected, so if you wanted to you could cross a portal and arrive in a hub that is in Japan when you were originally in Asia. The books include some fighting styles, magic spells, etc. Quote, what about if a devil or angel gets their hands on the book? They won't, since it will only respond to a dragon, no matter what. This is the first step. Give them hope, such as a place where they can go without dread. Let them get comfortable with each other and then they will eventually unite. Though, if I want to keep this idea spreading I need to reach more dragons, which is why once we visit Midgardsormr we are going to go around the world and hand out these. A foldable booklet appeared in his hands, and when he opened it, the booklet floated away from his hands before opening up fully. A holographic image of Earth appeared and focused in on where they were on the map. This will only operate with dragons, and only our kind can see the image. If someone else sees them open it, it will alert you of the closest hub, which is right here, and we are right here. 2 blue dots appeared on the map which represented Issei and Tiamat, while a red dot appeared about 200 miles from their location in the southern direction, and this represented the nearest outpost. Right now, you will have to travel a fair distance to get to the hub, but I am planning on increasing the number so you wouldn't have to go as far. Once you get there, you will be transported to the outpost upon your permission. Looks like someone has been busy, huh? Tiamat ate with a smile as she finished the last bit of her food. They both took their plates and washed them in the sink, and Issei smirked a bit at her. I try, Tia-chan. Getting struck with an idea. Issei let out an evil smile and scooped up some water in his hands. Looking over to the unsuspected dragoness, he threw the water at her, which got a surprised yelp. Issei-kun, what was that for? She asked with a glare, although it didn't look threatening at all. Oh, nothing at all. Just thought you wanted a bit more water. Taking another handful of water, he let it out straight at Tiamat, who tried to dodge, but the water seemed to track onto her and splashed her face. Hey, that's cheating. Well, then consider this your first lesson. Try to stop water from being splashed onto you, but use your powers to stop the water mid-flight. Using his index finger, he motioned for the water in the sink to come to him. Tiamat watched in fascination as the water from the sink formed a tendril and went over to him. She made the mistake of blinking, and at that moment, a small pool of water was sent her way. Gah! She yelped and looked down to see that her shirt was wet and the bra he just recently put on can be seen from her damp shirt. Light blue, it suits you very well, Tia-chan. Issei said with a wink, and she blushed madly while crossing her arms over her chest. Don't look. It's embarrassing. Ah, but Tia-chan, you look very cute like that. Issei-kun, gah. Getting splashed once more, she gave an annoyed look at him, who smiled gleefully. Don't get distracted so easily. If you want to succeed in using your powers, you need to keep a calm head. The power over water requires someone with enough willpower to guide the flowing rapid to whatever direction you want it to go. Propelling another blob of water at her, he was impressed to find that the velocity of the water slowed down a bit. But, ultimately Tiamat was only able to dodge a little of it and in turn got splashed once more. For the next few minutes, Issei continued this process over and over again, much to Tiamat's not-so-hidden ire. Whenever she tried to fully dodge the attack, he would increase the speed of the attack to counteract her evasion maneuvers. However, over time he noticed that his attacks were getting increasingly slower, and Tiamat noticed this, which fueled her to keep on continuing the task. The whole kitchen was soaked, and he didn't hide his chuckles whenever she slipped and fell on the ground while cursing profusely at the inanimate floors. Come on, Tia-chan. I know you can do better than this. How about I make you a deal? If you can do this and survive the training for today, I'll let you sleep with me tonight. How does that sound? Issei asked with small smirk as he swirled a ball of water in the air. Really? She asked in surprise as some indecent thoughts filled her mind, but she quickly banished them. Either way, that didn't stop the blush from rising to her pearly cheeks. He nodded his head and a determined look appeared in her eyes. Taking a stance, she looked at him with a hardened look in her eyes. Bring it on, then. Issei's sweat dropped at the sudden change in demeanor at the mention of her sleeping with him. Huffing in amusement, he threw the ball of water at her at a slightly increased speed from his other ones. Noticing her pointed look, she gasped at the oncoming attack and also how her blue-green eyes flashed brightly for a second. He wasn't surprised to find the water attack to stop just inches away from her face. Smiling to himself, he spelled the remaining water that he had in the air and began to approach the Dragon King. Not bad, Tia-chan. See, I knew you had it in oh. Hearing a cracking sound, he slightly widened his eyes. The water Tiamat stopped in mid-flight began to freeze over in ice. Without warning, the ice broke apart and fell to the floor. Looking at her, he found that she was smiling happily and immediate. Ely went up to him with a skip in her step. Issei-kun, I did it. I mainly focused on using fire, but now I get the basics of my other powers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wrapping her arms around his body, she jumped up and down in glee while he chuckled and rubbed her head. I'm proud of you, Tia-chan. Now that you understand the basic understanding of how to manipulate water, it should come much easier. Remember that you need a strong will in order to control water and ice. Speaking of which, nice job on the freezing the water. I hope you know that I'm going to expect much more of you after that little stunt you just did. Nodding happily, she snuggled into his chest even more, and now he could clearly feel her boobs pressing straight into his chest. Upon doing so, Tiamat let out a breathy sigh and began to subconsciously rub her upper body into him. That was until she seemed to notice what she was doing and leapt away from him with a reddened face. Sorry. She yelped in embarrassment, but he laughed at her actions before summoning up a small orange flame that had an assortment of colors flickering in it. Before she could notice what was happening, the flame expanded until it encompassed the entire room, and she closed her eyes reflexively. When she opened them, she noticed that her clothes were dry and the floor was dried up as well. Turning to Issei, she blinked as was already in front of her and grabbed onto her should gently until he teleported them away. Ellipsis. was the first sound she made as her new surroundings became clear to her. The first thing she noticed was that the really enormous room she was in. It was about 1,000 meters long and wide, as well as having metal plating on the walls that had strange runic patterns on them. Lights lined up on the ceiling, and on the left and right sides of the room were a 50-meter doorway. Here we are. Tia-chan, I present to you the training room that you will become quite familiar with. This is where I trained for the past years. This place is incredible, Issei-kun. How did you make this? Oh, well, it is pretty easy when you can just think of something and then pop, there it is. As you can see, this is the training room. The walls are metal that are several meters thick and are infused with sealing magic in order to repair any damage that is sustained to the room. On the left is the fitness room, where you will work on your body, and the right is a large indoor heated swimming pool for after training. Now I want to assess your abilities, so if you would. Nodding her head, she started to walk away from Issei, but before she got out arm's reach from him, he slapped her rear. Giving a girlish cry at the sudden, but secretly welcomed, action, she looked at Issei with blushed cheeks and a glare. You know, when you make a face like that, it just makes you look cuter. Anyway, I was just helping you get your pretty ass over there, think of it as an incentive to hustle. That is, unless you are a masochistic, then it backfired. I am not a masochistic. Okay then. So, if I did it again, what would you do? Nothing, she squeaked out silently, but he heard it and grinned at her. You're one of those submissive girls, aren't you? I didn't expect that, although it is understandable based on your reaction. Haha, I wonder, he said with a smirk and took a step to Tiamat, who yipped but otherwise didn't move from her spot. Just messing with you. Moving on, come at me whenever you are ready. First, we will test your hand-to-hand combat and then your swordsmanship. Finally, we will do our magical power, which includes spells and such. Nodding her head at him, Tiamat wasted no time in sprinting towards Issei. While he could see her movements clearly, it was still impressive to most dragons' agility. Shifting his head an inch to the left to avoid a jab sent his way, and then taking a step backwards in order to evade a shot to his midsection. Tiamat didn't seem to want him to get CE and thus charged at him while throwing a flurry of punches aimed at whatever spot was open in his relaxed stance. Throughout all of this, Issei would dodge the attacks at the last second, which only served to irritate the blue-haired beauty. Deciding to see how one of her punches feel like, he deliberately neglected to evade the hook that was aimed at his face. The moment her fist impacted his face, a loud crack originated from her hand and she hissed in pain while drawing it back to her body. Oh, shit, she cursed in pain, but otherwise took it extremely well. Taking her injured hand, he saw that it was already forming bruises on her skin, but those simply disappeared as he applied some healing magic to her hand. There you go. Thanks, she mumbled, feeling a little dejected at the fact that she practically broke her hand from simply punching him. Shaking out of those negative thoughts, she caught a wooden sword with her hands that Issei conjured up. He too had his own wooden sword, and he was already in a stance when she looked at him. Alright, let's move on to your next evaluation. This one is simple, just land a hit on me with your sword. Go. As soon as the last word left his mouth, he was expecting her to charge head-on at him like she did previously, only to see that she didn't and instead took a stance while studying him. Someone learns fast, he thought to himself, as he decided to take the initiative and slowly advanced to her. His eyes instantly pinpointed areas of weakness in her stance and the small center of gravity she had. Targeting one of her openings, he swung his wooden sword in a lateral fashion to which she managed to block. However, her hold on the block started to lessen, so she quickly removed herself from the situation and sent a few fast strikes towards his body. Parrying the strikes, he dodged an overhead swing from Tiamat before blocking a follow-up strike from the woman. Laying down some of his own strikes, he started to go forwards as Tiamat was losing ground due to the sudden assault from him. She tried to sneak attacks in the openings that were generated upon his attacking, but he always had some sort of counter when she did that. Thrusting his wooden sword at her, he ran it along her own sword and successfully got the tip of the blade to her wielding hand. Rotating his wrist in a 360-degree angle and giving it a sharp jerk to the side, her wooden sword flew from her grip. Wah, she started to say but stopped due to Issei snatching her airborne sword and placing the two sword against her neck in an X. So that her neck resting in between the two blades and one push or pull would slice open her neck. Smiling a bit bitterly at her loss, the feeling didn't last long when Issei smiled at her. Good. Now, this next test is easy. Just increase your magic power to the max and do a magic attack. Okay. She responded and her blue aura flared to life as it grew to the maximum output that she could handle. Her eyes glowed menacingly and Issei noticed that the temperature of the room dropped a degree or two. He watched her take a huge gulp of air before a large stream of blue fire erupted from her th. Roden reached the wall she was facing. The slight sizzling of metal was the distinct thing that he could hear and the flames continued to last for about half a minute till she couldn't handle it anymore. Looking at the damage, he was impressed to find that she burned away about half of the thickness of the metal walls although only in one spot. Due to the seals he had implanted, the newly created hole started to repair itself at a quick pace. Nice. Well done, I think I can get a feel for what kind of style you may progress fast in. Go into your fighting stance. Doing as she was told, she settled into her stance and Issei started to walk around her slowly. Going to her, he adjusted her arms and elbows so they cover up her head and fixed her hips so they wouldn't cause any decrease in potential damage that she may do. Lastly, he tilted her chin down a bit and finally he tapped on her legs in order for her to widen them a bit. Standing back, he observed his handiwork and nodded to himself in satisfaction. How does it feel? Ah, good actually. Nodding at her response, Issei went over to her once more. Now if you are fighting with a sword, then you want to keep the same stance. But this time have your unoccupied arm tense and ready to attack. Picking up one of the discarded wooden sword he put it in her hand and adjusted her to fit the proper stance. You focus mainly on speed and quick attacks that still pack a bit of punch to them. Now you can still attack normally with a sword, but now you can use your other hand to hit your opponent. Now, let's go to the fitness room to work on your body. I don't have a lot of magic left in me though. That fire attack took quite a bit more out of me than I expected. Magic. No, today is just training on your body. Tomorrow is when we will begin your magic training. Now, get moving, Tia-chan. He said with a smirk while she gulped at the slight evil glee look in his eyes at the thought of training her. Also, don't forget that if you can survive this training, my bed is open for you tonight. Widening her eyes in remembrance, she took off to the fitness while he chuckled merrily to himself. If this is all it took to get her to progress quickly then he isn't complaining in the least. Either way, it benefits both of them at the same time. He can only imagine what Great Red would do tomorrow when she woke up from her sleep. Thanks for watching.